Did humanity truly look up at the stars and imagine gods, or were we remembering visitors? Across every continent, ancient civilizations, separated by vast oceans, shared an inexplicable obsession. They built gargantuan monuments like Stonehenge and the temples of Angkor Wat to mirror celestial alignments with a precision we've only recently achieved. They worshipped sky gods who taught them agriculture, mathematics, and the laws of the universe, and then flew away. From the Nazca lines visible only from the sky to the Sumerian texts describing gods from the heavens, the evidence is overwhelming. Are these just myths, or are they the last fading echoes of an interstellar intervention, a cosmic heritage that has been purposefully mistranslated to keep us terrestrial? Hidden among the windswept cliffs of Brittany, France, stands a structure so ancient that even the pyramids came long after it, a monument built by unknown hands with unknown tools for reasons we still cannot comprehend. This is the Cairn of Barnenez, one of humanity's earliest and most enduring mysteries, a silent giant of stone that predates written language kings and even bronze itself. If no one truly knows who built the Barnenez Cairn, what do you think? Was it the work of a forgotten civilization, or simply proof that prehistoric people were far more advanced than we imagine? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theory. Archaeologists estimate that the Barnenez Cairn was constructed between 4850 and 4200 BCE during the Neolithic period, an age when farming had just begun to replace hunting and gathering in Europe. This means that while the sands of Egypt had not yet felt the first stone of the pyramids, the people of Brittany were already shaping granite into sacred architecture. Stretching almost 75 meters in length, 28 meters in width, and 8 meters in height, Barnenez is a massive trapezoidal mound composed of nearly 13,000 tons of stone. Inside, 11 narrow chambers run deep into the structure, each accessible by long passageways lined with carefully placed slabs. No mortar was used, yet the stones have held firm for more than 6 millennia, a feat that speaks to both technical mastery and spiritual devotion. What makes Barnenez astonishing is not only its age, but its precision. Each chamber within the cairn is unique, some circular, others rectangular, and many of the stones are etched with enigmatic carvings, spirals, chevrons, axes, and patterns resembling waves or celestial arcs. The designs appear deliberate, encoded with meaning that has been lost to time. Some researchers believe these markings reflect rituals tied to the sun, death, and rebirth. Others think they might have served an astronomical purpose, marking solstices or lunar alignments. Yet there's no clear evidence to confirm any single theory. What we do know is that whoever built Barnenez understood geometry, balance, and symbolism far beyond what we typically attribute to Neolithic society. Studies reveal that Barnenez was not erected in a single generation. Instead, it was constructed in 2 major phases, one older section, built first, then expanded later by people who continued to use the site for centuries. This continuity implies deep cultural reverence, suggesting that Barnenez was not just a tomb, but a place where rituals, memory, and ancestry converged. The later builders didn't alter the original chambers, but carefully added to them, as if continuing a sacred story written in stone. This slow, generational expansion adds yet another layer to the mystery. It means different groups of people, across hundreds of years, shared the same spiritual vision, despite having no writing, no known religion, and no formal government. Inside the chambers, researchers discovered carvings that seem to follow patterns, a kind of prehistoric iconography. Among them are symbols that resemble axes, boats, serpentine lines, and swirling spirals, recurring motifs across many ancient sites in Western Europe. Some scholars speculate that they represent the journey of the soul or maps of the heavens, as seen by early astronomer priests. The most haunting idea, however, is that these carvings could be the earliest attempt at a written system now indecipherable. If true, Barnenez would not only be a monument to the dead, but the birthplace of symbolic human thought, a place where humanity first tried to speak through stone. Despite its staggering age, the engineering of the Barnenez Cairn remains one of the most baffling achievements of prehistory. Built more than 6 millennia ago, it was assembled without metal tools, pulleys, or wheels, only the simplest wooden sledges and human effort. Yet the builders managed to transport and stack nearly 13,000 tons of granite and slate, crafting a perfectly balanced monument that has endured time itself. Each stone was placed with mathematical precision, forming interlocking layers that distribute pressure evenly throughout the mound. Modern engineers have marveled at this hidden sophistication. The structure behaves like a living organism, with each stone supporting and compensating for the next. Even more astonishing, it has resisted collapse through earthquake storms and wartime damage. How did these Neolithic people understand load-bearing dynamics centuries before the Egyptians built their pyramids? The resemblance in technique suggests either a parallel birth of advanced engineering or the lingering memory of a lost older civilization whose wisdom quietly echoed across continents. This is where Barnenez crosses from archaeology into enigma. Despite decades of research, no one knows who the builders were. No tools, skeletons, or settlements have been conclusively linked to the construction of the cairn. It stands alone, isolated on a headland overlooking the sea, as if its creators vanished the moment it was complete. Some historians propose that it was built by the early megalithic culture that once stretched from Ireland to Portugal, a network of seafaring people who raised dolmens and stone circles along the Atlantic coast. But this theory still fails to explain how such a complex, massive project could be coordinated without cities' writing or central leadership. Others imagine a more mythic origin, that Barnenez could have been a remnant of a pre-Celtic civilization, an advanced people lost to time, whose knowledge seeded the later Neolithic world. This echoes the legends of Atlantis or the Hyperboreans, mythical societies said to have mastered stone and sky long before recorded history. The truth is likely somewhere between legend and logic. But the absence of definitive evidence, no signs of habitation, no inscriptions, no trace of a known culture, makes the Barnenez Cairn a riddle that defies both science and story. Whoever they were, they built not for themselves, but for eternity, and in doing so, left behind a message that only time itself seems to understand. For thousands of years, Barnenez lay buried under earth and vegetation. Local villagers knew of a strange mound, but not its significance. During World War II, German forces used the site as an observation post, and later in the 1950s, a quarry company began blasting its stones for construction material, unaware they were destroying one of the world's oldest human structures. It was only when archaeologists noticed the unusual pattern of stones that the excavation began. The destruction was halted, and Barnenez was declared a national monument in 1955. In a twist of irony, the partial damage revealed the cairn's internal chambers, giving modern researchers their first real look inside the heart of this ancient enigma. Standing atop the cairn today, one can see the vast Atlantic stretching endlessly westward. The monument's orientation toward the rising and setting sun over the Morlix Bay seems deliberate. It may symbolize the passage of souls, the movement from life to death, or even the eternal cycle of light and darkness. This alignment connects Barnenez with a broader prehistoric worldview, one in which death was not an end but a journey, and stone was a bridge between worlds. Perhaps the builders placed it on the cliffs so that in their beliefs the spirits of the dead could sail into the horizon, following the sun toward the afterlife. To stand before Barnenez is to confront a silence that feels almost sentient. The air is heavy, the stones massive, yet strangely graceful. You sense that every block was chosen for a reason, that there is a pattern, a rhythm, a message buried in geometry. It might have been a tomb or a temple, or both. But above all, it was a declaration of existence. In an age before names, before nations, a group of people decided to leave behind something that could outlast time itself. And it did. Even now, archaeologists admit that for all our technology, LiDAR scans, radiocarbon dating, 3D models, we still do not understand Barnenez fully. The cairn keeps its secrets whispering only to those who listen closely enough to hear the echoes of its builders. All that remains of the builders of Barnenez are the stones, silent, enduring, and nameless. No tools, no bones, no words, only their craft, etched into granite, defying time. It reminds us that human history may be older and deeper than we think. Civilizations rise, vanish, and leave behind only a question that still echoes today. Who were they? Deep in the misty highlands of Pu Sing Forest Park, in Bueng Kan Province, northeastern Thailand, lies a formation that looks almost alive. Locals call it Hin Sam Wan Three Whale Rocks. Seen from above, these colossal stones appear as three whales swimming side by side through a sea of green forest, the father, the mother, and the child. But what makes this place so hauntingly beautiful isn't just its shape. It's the energy that seems to radiate from the rocks themselves. Light that dances, compasses that waver, and a magnetic whisper that refuses to be explained. These whales have become both a geological wonder and a spiritual sanctuary, a place where the boundary between science and myth feels thinner than anywhere else on Earth. Do you think these rocks are just a natural wonder? Or could they truly hold an ancient energy waiting to be understood? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you believe about the mystery of the Three Whale Rocks? Geologists believe that Three Whale Rocks were formed more than 75 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period, the age of dinosaurs. The land that is now Thailand was once part of a vast, shallow sea. Over eons, sediments compacted into sandstone layers, then rose from the depths as tectonic forces folded and uplifted the region. Wind, rain, and time sculpted the sandstone into sleek, whale-like forms. The rounded backs of the rocks mimic the hydrodynamic curves of marine life, as though the ocean itself carved its memory into stone. It's as if nature preserved the image of the sea's greatest creatures long after the waters had vanished. But among the physical explanations lies something more mysterious, phenomena that no erosion or tectonic force can easily describe. Every dawn, when the first rays of sunlight strike the stone, a strange and mesmerizing phenomenon occurs. The entire surface of the whale's back begins to shimmer with shifting reflections, as if the stone were breathing light. The texture of the sandstone catches and bends the early sun into scales of silver and gold, gliding down its length like the skin of a living creature. Photographers who camp overnight often describe it as a moment when the rock awakens. Some swear they see ripples of light moving in patterns like the slow roll of muscles beneath skin. At first, this was dismissed as an optical illusion caused by moisture and mineral crystals in the rock surface. Yet studies with high-resolution light sensors revealed something else. The way sunlight refracts and reframes across these stones is not uniform. Certain points amplify light far more intensely than others, creating light corridors that behave almost like weak lenses or mirrors. Even more curious is what happens to magnetic instruments. When compasses are placed on specific spots of the rocks, their needles quiver or deviate slightly as if responding to a subtle magnetic field. Electronic devices sometimes register momentary interference, a faint static hum, a flicker of orientation sensors, a temporary GPS drift. Could the rocks themselves be holding a residual charge, the magnetized memory of the ancient seabed they once lay in? Or is this simply coincidence, a combination of iron minerals reacting to heat and light in ways we barely understand? Some researchers from Chulalongkorn University attempted to map these magnetic anomalies. Their instruments showed that the deviations weren't random. They seemed to align along a single axis stretching from the head of the whale to its tail. This magnetic line mirrors the direction of sunlight at dawn during the winter solstice, an astronomical alignment too precise to ignore. Was this merely nature's accident, or evidence that prehistoric people aware of magnetic or solar forces intentionally shaped or oriented these stones? That question still divides scientists and mystics alike. To local villagers, however, there is no mystery, only truth passed down through story. Long before geologists arrived, the people of Aten spoke of three great whales who lived in a boundless ocean. When the sea receded, they became stranded on dry land. Out of love for one another and the earth, they turned to stone rather than be separated. The legend says that when the sun rises and the rocks glow, it is the spirit of the whales remembering the sea. The flickers of light are said to be their breaths, shimmering waves that still carry the ocean's memory. Some monks who meditate there claim to feel a subtle vibration beneath the surface, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Whether it is imagination, faith, or something deeper, the sensation leaves a lasting peace in those who experience it. Visitors to Three Whale Rocks often describe sensations that defy logic: a faint pressure in the head, a tingling across the skin, or an unexplainable calm that seems to seep from the stone itself. Scientists who brought magnetic and electrical sensors to the site recorded something equally strange: tiny but steady electromagnetic pulses radiating from specific points on the rocks, strongest at sunrise and sunset. These readings, though weak, were consistent, as if the stone were breathing in rhythm with the planet. Geophysicists proposed that this might be the result of the piezoelectric effect, a natural electric charge released when quartz and feldspar crystals inside the sandstone expand and contract with temperature changes. Over millions of years, these cycles may have turned the rocks into ancient batteries, quietly pulsing with the Earth's energy. To stand upon them at dawn is to feel the heartbeat of something vast, a 75-million-year-old geological organism that still hums beneath the tropical sun, reminding us that even stone, when old enough, can come alive. When viewed from above, the three massive stones of Three Whale Rocks lie perfectly aligned along a northeast-southwest axis, precisely matching the direction of the sunrise during the winter solstice. This coincidence, combined with the unusual magnetic fluctuations recorded at the site, has led many researchers to believe that the area may once have served as a prehistoric observatory or a ceremonial solar calendar created thousands of years ago. Archaeologists have discovered grooves, cuts, and unnaturally flat surfaces on the rocks, traces difficult to attribute to natural erosion. It is possible that ancient people intentionally shaped or modified these formations to mark the position of the sun, perhaps for rituals or seasonal observances. If true, this would suggest that the ancient inhabitants of Southeast Asia possessed advanced knowledge of astronomy and the Earth's magnetic field far beyond what we once assumed. Evidence that these stone whales are not merely natural wonders, but also a legacy of ancient human intelligence. Today, visitors describe Three Whale Rocks as a place of serenity and awe. The wind carries the scent of forest and ancient stone. When you stand on the father whale's back, you can see the Mekong River, the forests of Laos, and a horizon that feels eternal. At sunrise, the whole world seems to ignite in soft orange light, and for a brief moment, it's easy to believe that you're standing not on stone, but on the back of a cosmic creature, still gliding through the memory of an ancient sea. Spiritual seekers say this is one of the world's energy nodes, where Earth's magnetic field and cosmic light converge. Scientists remain cautious, but even skeptics admit there's something about this place that defies measurement. Perhaps the truth of Three Whale Rocks lies somewhere in between a masterpiece of geology, yet shaped by forces so intricate and interwoven that they evoke the sacred. Light magnetism stone and time-4 elements converging to create a natural phenomenon that blurs the line between the physical and the spiritual. Some mysteries don't need solving. They only ask to be witnessed to remind us that Earth is still full of living wonders older and wiser than our understanding. Amid the barren lands of the Anatolian Peninsula, where the wind and sand sweep over limestone hills and the burning sun etches its mark upon every rock, lies a place that seems to defy everything we know about human history, Karahan Tepe. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a quiet hill. Yet beneath that dry soil lies one of the oldest, most complex, and most mysterious structures ever built by human hands. Its age is estimated at 12,000 years, meaning it predates the Egyptian pyramids by at least 7,000 years, and even comes before the dawn of agriculture. For centuries, humanity believed that Stone Age people were primitive hunters and gatherers incapable of constructing anything monumental, let alone places of worship or works of art. But Karahan Tepe, together with its twin site Göbekli Tepe, about 35 kilometers away, has shattered every one of those assumptions, revealing a forgotten era when human intelligence had already reached astonishing heights. What do you think about Karahan Tepe? Could people from 12,000 years ago really have built something so advanced, or is this the remnant of a civilization we've completely forgotten? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theory. When archaeologists began excavating Karahan Tepe, they unearthed hundreds of T-shaped pillars, some towering up to 4 meters tall and weighing more than 10 tons, arranged in circular formations. Even more astonishing were the reliefs carved into the stone, human figures, animals, and abstract symbols unlike anything ever seen in known ancient civilizations. In one oval-shaped underground chamber stands a giant stone statue of a man, his head emerging from the bedrock, while the rest of his body remains buried as if rising from the earth itself. His expression is solemn, his lifeless eyes fixed on the ceiling, an image so haunting that it leaves all who see it speechless. Some scholars interpret it as a god of rebirth or as a symbol of humanity's awakening consciousness, marking the first moment when humankind began to reflect upon its own existence. Karahan Tepe was built around 510,000 BCE, meaning it existed long before humans learned to farm or domesticate animals. There are no traces of villages, pottery, or metal tools in the area, only stones cut, carved, and arranged with a level of precision that has baffled archaeologists. This means that the people who built it were mere hunter-gatherers living off the land, yet they possessed knowledge of geometry, proportion, and organized labor far beyond their era. How could a Stone Age society move and erect blocks weighing tens of tons using only primitive tools? Where did they acquire such mastery of orientation, measurement, and design? Every stone of Karahan Tepe stands as a question that challenges the very foundations of what we believe about human social evolution. Unlike Göbekli Tepe, where the T-shaped pillars are mostly plain or decorated with animal carvings, Karahan Tepe features pillars with sculpted noses, mouths, and human faces, an unprecedented detail for such an ancient site. This may represent the earliest form of deifying the human image, when people began associating divine power with their own likeness. These stone faces are far from crude. They express awareness, fear, reverence, emotions captured in limestone. Many archaeologists believe this marks a turning point in human spirituality, the moment when people no longer just feared nature, but began to question their place in the cosmos. The question, who built Karahan Tepe, remains one of the greatest mysteries in modern archaeology. These people left behind no writing, no human remains, no trace of metal or advanced tools, only perfectly carved stones arranged with order and purpose. Many scholars believe they may have been advanced hunter-gatherer groups living in the ancient Mesopotamian region, possessing a level of abstract thinking thousands of years ahead of their time. They might have used finely sharpened stone tools combined with rope pulleys, earthen ramps, and human strength to move and raise stone blocks weighing tens of tons. However, many researchers argue that human effort alone could not have achieved such symmetry, balance, and precise astronomical alignment. Some bolder theories even suggest that there may have been an earlier civilization wiped out by a global cataclysm, yet leaving behind its legacy here. Could Karahan Tepe be evidence of a pre-deluge civilization, the kind mentioned in Sumerian myths or the Bible? Though no clear answer exists, one thing is certain. The builders of Karahan Tepe possessed a profound understanding of the universe and human existence, enough to turn stone into a language of faith, a message carved across tens of thousands of years of history. What astonishes scientists most about Karahan Tepe is the precision and artistry of its architecture. Each T-shaped pillar is evenly spaced, oriented towards circular centers with near-perfect symmetry, suggesting that ancient builders possessed geometric and spatial knowledge far beyond their time. The underground chambers are carved directly into the natural bedrock, complete with corridors, stairways, and drainage systems, revealing careful planning and advanced construction understanding. Across the stone surfaces, carvings of snakes, leopards, gazelles, and birds appear in abundance, not merely decorative, but believed to be symbols of power, life, and spiritual transformation. There are no random cuts, no unnecessary details. Every line seems deliberate, as if shaped by hands, guided by both art and faith. The entire site forms a symphony in stone, where geometry and meaning blend seamlessly, a testament to the extraordinary intellect and spiritual depth of prehistoric humanity. Karahan Tepe does not stand alone amid the barren hills of Anatolia. It is part of a network of more than a dozen similar sites, collectively known as Taş Tepeler, meaning the Stone Hills. Spread across southeastern Turkey, these archaeological sites all feature T-shaped pillars, arranged in circular formations and oriented toward a ceremonial center, as if the entire region once formed a unified religious complex. The similarities in carving styles, layouts, and symbols suggest that ancient people shared a common belief system, possibly serving as the spiritual foundation for the whole area. If this is true, Karahan Tepe might have been the central hub of that network, where prehistoric humans gathered to perform rituals, make offerings, and pray for successful hunts. Fertility and harmony with nature. It may represent the earliest known model of organized religion in human history, emerging thousands of years before the dawn of agricultural civilization. Karahan Tepe is not merely a collection of stones. It is humanity's first declaration of thought. It marks the moment when humans began to build, not for survival, but for meaning. In each pillar and each carving lies a profound awareness of existence, a yearning to transcend the animal state. It may have been here that the earliest forms of religion, philosophy, and art were born, a place where humans looked to the sky and engraved their beliefs into the earth-binding heaven and earth, man and God through stone. To this day, less than 20% of Karahan Tepe has been excavated. The rest remains buried, waiting to reveal its secrets. Each excavation season brings new discoveries, hidden chambers, statues, and symbols, unlike any found before. Many archaeologists believe that what we know now is only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface may lie hundreds of artifacts, underground corridors, and ritual spaces that could completely rewrite human history. Karahan Tepe stands as proof that human intelligence did not emerge from agriculture or cities, but may have been present in our creative and spiritual instincts from the very beginning. The people who built it did not seek material permanence. They sought to communicate with the universe, with gods, and with their own souls. Perhaps they were not building to be remembered, but to engrave the meaning of life into the stone, leaving it for us to rediscover. Thousands of years later, that message still echoes through time. We once understood more than you think. Karahan Tepe is not merely an archaeological site. It is a mirror reflecting our forgotten origins, forcing us to ask if 12,000 years ago, before wheels, metal, or writing, humanity could achieve this, then how much do we truly know about where we come from? Across the windswept landscapes of Britain, from the chalky hills of Dorset to the misty ridges of Wales, rise thousands of mysterious earthworks that have endured for nearly 3 millennia. These are the hill forts of Britain, monumental fortifications carved from the land itself, their ramparts still tracing the outlines of a vanished age. Seen from above, they resemble sleeping giants, vast spirals of earth encircling empty hilltops, whispering stories of forgotten tribes and lost purposes. At first glance, these hill forts seem like ancient military strongholds, built to defend against invasion or tribal warfare. Their sheer scale supports that assumption. Towering earthen walls, deep ditches, and fortified gates that would have intimidated any approaching enemy. Some of the largest, like Maiden Castle in Dorset, cover an area so vast that it could hold an entire modern village. From its summit, you can gaze across rolling valleys, understanding immediately why ancient people chose these commanding vantage points. But beneath the surface of their apparent simplicity lies a far deeper mystery, one that has puzzled archaeologists for centuries. Were these truly fortresses of war or sanctuaries of the spirit? If you stood atop an ancient hill fort, gazing down at the misty lands below, do you think these massive structures were built to defend against enemies or to communicate with the gods? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Despite decades of research, excavations, and mapping, the true purpose of Britain's hill forts remains uncertain. Some are built with clear defensive intent, strong walls, multiple ramparts, and narrow gateways designed to funnel attackers. Yet others show almost no sign of conflict, no burned layers, no weapon caches, no mass graves. Instead, archaeologists often find ritual deposits, fragments of pottery, animal bones, and offerings buried within the ramparts. At sites like Danebury and Old Oswestry, Evidence of feasting ceremonial fires and symbolic structures has led some experts to believe that hill forts were not military bases at all, but rather centers of gathering and ritual places where communities came together to celebrate trade and worship. In other words, the word fort may be misleading. These places might have been spiritual citadels, monumental expressions of identity, community, and connection with the divine. What makes the hill forts of Britain so extraordinary, almost beyond belief, is the construction technique that defies the limits of ancient human capability. Without machines or metal tools, people of the Iron Age used only wooden picks, baskets, and sheer human strength to move thousands of tons of earth and stone, shaping massive walls that rose over 10 meters high and stretched hundreds of meters around the hillsides. Each layer of soil and stone was carefully positioned to create a perfect slope, allowing the ramparts to withstand over 2,500 years of wind and rain without collapsing. The entrance systems, composed of ditches, terraces, and overlapping walls, were engineered with such sophistication that even modern archaeologists still cannot fully grasp how the ancient builders managed the flow of people and ensured defense within. At sites like Maiden Castle and Danebury, the multi-tiered defenses resemble enormous labyrinths of earth, serving both practical military purposes and ceremonial meanings. Though each hill fort varies in size, some small as a ring of earth, others vast. Like a city, they all share one defining trait: they dominate the surrounding landscape. From their summits, the ancient people could watch valleys, sunrises, and stars, suggesting these places were not only built for defense, but also to connect humanity with nature and the divine. There are over 4,000 known hill forts across Britain. Many are positioned within sight of one another, suggesting a network not merely of defense, but of communication. Some historians speculate they were connected by signal fires visible from hill to hill. Others propose a more mystical theory that their placement aligns along ley lines, invisible pathways of energy that connect sacred sites like Stonehenge, Avebury, and Silbury Hill. Whether coincidence or cosmic intention, the pattern is undeniable. These sites form a web across the ancient British landscape, as if the builders sought to mirror the stars upon the earth. Adding to the mystery are the vitrified hill forts, such as those found in Scotland. In these rare cases, the stone walls show signs of having been subjected to immense heat so intense that the rock partially melted and fused into glass. How this was achieved remains a puzzle. Was it the result of catastrophic warfare, where invaders burned the fortresses to the ground, or could it have been a deliberate ritual act, perhaps symbolizing transformation, destruction, and rebirth? Modern experiments have shown that vitrification would require temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees, far beyond what normal fires could produce with ancient technology. This has led to speculation that some unknown technique or lost ritual of fire might have been used to seal the fort, spiritually turning stone into glass as an offering to the gods. By the time of the Celts, many of these hill forts had become centers of power myth and legend. The Celts, with their deep reverence for the natural world and the unseen, may have inherited and repurposed the hill forts of earlier peoples. In Celtic tradition, high places were sacred, the boundary between earth and sky, the mortal and the divine. Sites like Cadbury Castle are entwined with myth. Many believe it to be the real Camelot, the court of King Arthur. Others, like Treacery in Wales, were said to house the spirits of warriors, guarding their ancient homeland from beyond the grave. To this day, locals speak of lights, whispers, and echoes on these hilltops when the mist descends. By the late Iron Age, many hill forts were suddenly abandoned. Some were destroyed by fire, others were left empty, their ramparts gradually swallowed by grass and time. The arrival of the Romans in 43 CE accelerated this decline. New forms of urban life replaced the old ways of the tribes. Yet the reason for the simultaneous abandonment of many hill forts remains unclear. Were they rendered obsolete by changing technology, or was there a spiritual shift, a cultural transformation that made these sacred hills lose their meaning? Some archaeologists suspect a ritualized closure, that these communities intentionally dismantled their hill sanctuaries, sealing them forever as they entered a new age. Throughout human history, hills have been symbols of ascent, physical and spiritual. To climb a hill fort is to leave the world below, to rise closer to the heavens. It is not difficult to imagine Iron Age rituals performed at dawn as sunlight crested the horizon and fires were lit along the ramparts. From below, such a spectacle would have been awe-inspiring, a vision of power, faith, and connection between the people and their gods. Even today, standing on the summit of an ancient hill fort, one feels a strange presence, the weight of centuries, the pulse of the land. The wind whistles through grass, where warriors once stood, and the earth beneath your feet still bears the outlines of ancient walls. Something about these places transcends simple explanation. For all our technology and research, the hill forts of Britain remain elusive. Archaeologists can map their structure, carbon date their layers, and catalogue their artifacts, but their meaning, their soul, defies certainty. Perhaps that is their greatest legacy. They remind us that not everything built by ancient hands was meant to be explained. Some structures were not simply fortresses or homes, but expressions of belief, earthbound prayers carved into the hills. The Iron Age people who raised these massive walls may not have been defending themselves from enemies at all. They may have been defending something far more profound: their identity, their connection to the cosmos, their vision of order in a chaotic world. Even now, researchers debate whether hill forts symbols of tribal power, refugees during war, or temples of faith. The answer may be all three, or something we can no longer comprehend. Each theory reveals a fragment of truth, but the whole remains out of reach, like the horizon from the summit of Maiden Castle. The hill forts of Britain stand as monuments not only to the strength of the people who built them, but to the mystery of human purpose itself. In their silence, they challenge us to listen to the wind, the stones, and the questions that echo through time. Hidden high in the Andes near the Peruvian town of Abancay lies one of the strangest relics ever discovered from the Inca civilization, the Saywite Stone. To the casual eye, it appears to be just a large, weathered boulder, but a closer look reveals something extraordinary. Hundreds of intricate carvings, animals, temples, rivers, terraces, and mountains, all sculpted into a single, massive block of granite. It is not merely a rock, it is a world in miniature, a mystery frozen in stone. The Saywite Stone measures around 2.5 meters tall and nearly 4 meters in diameter. Its surface is a labyrinth of channels, terraces, and figures carved with surgical precision. Archaeologists have long debated its purpose. Some believe it was an experimental model for the Incas' complex irrigation systems. Others think it was a sacred map, a symbolic representation of how the Inca viewed the relationship between the natural and the divine. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of all lies in the carvings themselves. What do you think the hundreds of carvings on the Saywite Stone truly represent? An ancient map, a sacred message, or something beyond our understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The surface of Saywite looks almost alive. Dozens of miniature mountains rise and fall like frozen waves. Rivers run between them, ending in tiny lakes and reservoirs. If you pour water over the top, it flows naturally through the grooves, as if the stone itself was designed to simulate real hydrological behavior. To the Inca, who mastered water management in one of the most challenging environments on Earth, this was not just an artistic display, it was sacred engineering. Across its surface are more than 200 individual figures, some familiar, others completely alien to modern eyes. Llamas, jaguars, monkeys, birds, fish, even what appears to be crocodiles, each one carefully positioned as if part of a greater ecosystem. Yet among them are strange hybrid shapes that do not match any known animal, suggesting that the carvers may have included mythological beings or spiritual entities. Some of the animals are depicted in motion, drinking from rivers, climbing mountains, or resting near terraces, giving the entire stone a dynamic quality, like a snapshot of a living world. These details are not random. Every curve and contour seems intentional. The animals are carved with a sense of purpose, as if they symbolize different aspects of nature: fertility, rain harvest, life, and death. What makes these carvings so mysterious is not just their beauty, but their accuracy. The proportions, angles, and spatial relationships between elements are consistent, as if mapped from real observation. This has led some researchers to propose that the Saywite Stone might represent a scaled model of the Inca Empire, or perhaps a symbolic diagram of the cosmos itself. The Pacha, a concept in Andean cosmology describing the interconnected realms of the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. Every carving on the Saywite Stone may hold meaning beyond its appearance. Some scholars have suggested that it could be an encoded message, a form of symbolic communication lost with the fall of the Inca civilization. Unlike written language, the Inca used visual systems such as quipus knotted strings to convey complex information. Could Saywite have been a visual database preserving agricultural, hydrological, or even astronomical data in symbolic form? Others interpret the carvings as a spiritual landscape, an expression of the Inca's worldview. In their cosmology, the world was divided into three realms: Hanan Pacha, the upper world of gods and stars; K Pacha, the world of humans; and Uku Pacha, the inner world of the dead. On Saywite, animals from land, air, and water intertwine, perhaps representing the unity between these realms, a reminder that life and spirit flow together like rivers from the mountains to the sea. The location of Saywite adds to its mystery. It sits near the ancient ceremonial site of Concacha, believed to be dedicated to Ilapa, the god of thunder and rain, and Mama Cocha, the goddess of water. The Inca worshipped water as a living force, a divine element that sustained crops, people, and the empire itself. If Saywite was indeed a ritual stone, priests may have poured water over its surface during ceremonies to observe how it flowed, interpreting the paths as divine signs or omens for the coming seasons. Imagine an Inca priest standing before the stone, water cascading through the carved valleys, glistening in the sun. To them, this was not a scientific experiment, it was communion with the gods, a miniature world through which the voice of nature could speak. The craftsmanship of the Saywite Stone remains one of the greatest testaments to Inca ingenuity. Carved entirely from solid granite, one of the hardest stones known to man, it displays an astonishing level of precision that continues to baffle modern archaeologists. The Incas possessed no iron or steel tools, yet the cuts are smooth, the lines symmetrical, and the proportions flawless, as if guided by invisible geometry. Each animal, mountain, and channel is positioned with deliberate harmony, forming a composition that feels both artistic and mathematical. The more one studies it, the clearer it becomes that Saywite was not an impulsive creation, but the product of careful planning, ritual significance, and extraordinary craftsmanship. Some researchers have compared it to the monumental stones at Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo, where massive blocks fit together with such precision that even a knife blade cannot pass between them. These similarities hint at a broader Andean tradition, one where stone was treated as a living entity capable of holding spiritual power. To the Inca, carving stone was not merely an act of construction, but of communication with the earth itself. In this light, the Saywite Stone becomes more than a carved model. It is a sacred dialogue between humanity and the cosmos, frozen forever in granite. Despite decades of research, the true purpose of the Saywite Stone remains one of archaeology's most tantalizing enigmas. Many experts believe it was an architectural or hydraulic model, allowing Inca engineers to visualize how water flowed across landscapes before constructing canals and terraces. Others argue it served as a teaching device for priest engineers, blending sacred ritual with practical instruction, a place where science and spirituality met. A more mystical interpretation suggests it was a symbolic map of the world, depicting the sacred geography of gods, humans, and spirits intertwined. Yet fringe theorists push further, proposing that Saywite encodes memories of a lost continent or forgotten civilization, its carvings preserving a vision of a world long vanished. Though unproven, these theories endure because the stone itself seems to whisper secrets, too precise, too intentional, and far too extraordinary to dismiss as mere decoration. If Saywite truly served a practical purpose, why decorate it with mythic animals? If it was purely ceremonial, why include so much topographical detail? And perhaps the greatest mystery of all, how did a civilization without metal tools or modern mapping techniques achieve such precision and coherence? The Inca were masters of integration, blending science, art, and spirituality into a single worldview. The Saywite Stone embodies that synthesis. It is as much a scientific artifact as it is a work of art, as much a religious symbol as a feat of engineering. Today, the Saywite Stone still rests quietly on its Andean hillside, its carvings weathered yet alive. Few realize they stand before a masterpiece that captured an entire world in stone. Each curve and creature whispers of a time when nature and spirit were one, when rivers, gods, and humans flowed together in harmony. Unsolved and unbroken, Saywite remains a sacred echo from the past, a carved universe still speaking from the heart of the Andes. Deep beneath the turquoise waters off the coast of western Cuba lies one of the most perplexing mysteries of modern archaeology, a place that could rewrite everything we think we know about the origins of civilization. Discovered in 2001, the so-called Cuban underwater city has stirred a storm of debate, wonder, and disbelief. Sonar images captured by a team of ocean engineers revealed massive stone formations arranged in geometric patterns at a depth where no known human construction should exist. Some saw in these ghostly images the remains of an ancient metropolis, the lost city of Atlantis, perhaps, while others dismissed it as a quirk of geology. Yet more than 2 decades later, the truth remains hidden beneath 600 meters of ocean darkness. Could there really be a sunken civilization resting beneath Cuba's waters? Or are we merely seeing patterns in stone, mistaking the face of nature for the ruins of a forgotten world? Share your thoughts below. What if the greatest story of human civilization still lies, waiting silent, beneath the Caribbean Sea? The story began when Paulina Zalitsky and Paul Weinsweig, founders of Advanced Digital Communications ADC, were surveying the sea floor for the Cuban government. Their mission was entirely practical, to locate shipwrecks and potential treasure sites in the Yucatan Channel, an area rich with maritime history. But as their sonar scanners swept across the ocean floor near Punta de Maisi, something extraordinary appeared: vast rectangular and circular structures stretching for nearly 2 square kilometers. At first, the team thought it might be the remnants of an ancient harbor or a natural rock formation. But as they zoomed in on the sonar data, the geometry became unmistakable. The shapes were precisely aligned, with right angles, corridors, and towering masses that seemed to mirror the layout of an organized city. To Zalitsky, who had previously worked on Soviet oceanic projects, the patterns looked eerily human-made. Something built, not born. What made the discovery so shocking was not only its size, but its depth. The structures lay nearly 600–700 meters below sea level, a zone of crushing pressure and perpetual twilight. No known ancient civilization possessed the technology to build at such depths, nor could any city have been submerged gradually without leaving a trace on the geological record. To explain such a location, scientists would need to accept one radical possibility: that the seafloor itself had once been dry land, later swallowed by cataclysmic geological upheavals. For this to happen, massive crustal movements or sudden land subsidence would have had to occur, events so violent they could reshape entire continents. If the Cuban underwater city truly represents human construction, it would suggest a lost civilization predating the known dawn of human history. Among all the aspects of the discovery, the most compelling and controversial lies in the structure itself. The sonar scans revealed a network of stone blocks and terraces that appeared too symmetrical, too deliberate to be natural. Observers described seeing pyramid-like forms, stairways, and even plaza-like spaces, all arranged with an uncanny sense of design. In high-resolution renderings, certain structures seemed to rise in tiers, resembling the stepped architecture of Mesoamerican pyramids found in Mexico and Central America. Others took on shapes reminiscent of spherical domes and circular temples, evoking parallels with ancient Mediterranean ruins. The arrangement appeared intentional, not random scattering, but urban planning on a monumental scale. Some marine geologists attempted to explain these patterns as natural polygonal basalt formations, like the Giant's Causeway in Ireland. However, the angles observed in the Cuban sonar imagery, often near perfect 90 degrees, challenge this idea. Basalt fractures tend to form hexagonal or irregular columns, not precise squares, and rectangles extending over kilometers. The repetition of geometric motifs, grid lines, corridors, and alignments made the theory of randomness increasingly difficult to defend. Zalitsky herself described what she saw in a 2002 interview. "You can see ruins, walls, and even pyramids. They look like a city, like something that once stood above water." If these words are accurate, then what lies beneath the Caribbean might not just be geological coincidence, but the fossilized memory of a forgotten civilization. The notion of an entire city submerged in the Caribbean inevitably drew comparisons to Atlantis, the legendary island described by Plato over 2 millennia ago. According to his dialogues, Atlantis was a mighty civilization, located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, often interpreted as the Strait of Gibraltar that sank into the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. For centuries, countless explorers have searched for the mythical city from the Mediterranean to the Azores. But some modern theories suggest Atlantis might have been located in the Atlantic Basin near the Caribbean, a region prone to tectonic instability. The Cuban discovery, lying between Yucatan and Cuba, fits curiously well with certain interpretations of Plato's account, both geographically and symbolically. Still, mainstream scholars remain cautious. To link sonar images to a myth requires more than poetic resemblance. It demands hard evidence, samples measurements, and radiometric data. None of these have yet been made public, keeping the Cuban site balanced precariously between science and legend. After the initial revelation, the excitement quickly faded into silence. Zalitsky's team hinted at plans for a follow-up dive using remotely operated submersibles ROVs, but the results were never published. Some reports claimed that footage existed, blurred indistinct of stone blocks covered in sediment. Others insisted the data was classified by the Cuban government for reasons of national security. What is known is that no peer-reviewed scientific paper ever emerged from the project. In an age when archaeological discoveries are broadcast globally, the absence of verifiable evidence has only deepened the mystery. Was the data lost? Was the site misinterpreted? Or did the discovery reveal something that authorities preferred to keep hidden? Many geologists argue that nature alone can create structures of astonishing symmetry. They point to underwater mountain ranges, coral ridges, and basaltic formations that mimic human geometry. Some claim that sonar imaging can distort shapes, especially when data is processed through interpolation algorithms that fill in missing details. However, skeptics struggle to explain the urban-like layout, the apparent parallel lines, and orthogonal grids that repeat across the site. The scale of the formations, some as large as city blocks, also defies easy categorization. Even if nature carved these shapes, why here, and why so systematically? The debate echoes a broader tension between the precision of scientific caution and the thrill of the unknown. Until a submersible returns with high-definition footage or physical samples, the Cuban underwater city will remain an enigma, suspended between geological anomaly and archaeological revelation. If, and it remains a monumental, if these structures are indeed man-made, the implications are staggering. The last time this region could have been above sea level was more than 10,000 years ago, near the end of the last ice age, when rising sea levels flooded vast areas of the planet. That would make the builders contemporaries or even predecessors of the earliest known civilizations in Mesopotamia and Egypt. Such a timeline would challenge nearly every assumption about the origins of human architecture and social complexity. It would suggest that an advanced culture once thrived in the Caribbean basin, developing monumental construction long before the accepted birth of cities. What catastrophe then could have erased it so completely? A massive seismic event, a meteor impact, or the melting of polar ice, triggering a rapid deluge. Whatever the cause, the image of an entire civilization swallowed by the sea resonates deeply, not just as a scientific question, but as a mythic reminder of humanity's fragility before nature's power. More than 2 decades after its discovery, the Cuban underwater city remains an unsolved mystery, born not from ancient myth, but from modern sonar technology. The faint images of temples, roads, and ancient towers beneath the ocean floor continue to make humanity wonder, could a forgotten civilization lie hidden beneath those deep waters? The ocean, vast and mysterious, still keeps secrets older than human history itself. Deep in the rocky highlands near Lake Titicaca, southern Peru, lies one of the strangest and most haunting monuments ever carved into stone. A flat wall of reddish granite rising from the mountainside, bearing what looks like a giant door that leads nowhere. The local people call it Puerta de Hayumaca, the Gate of the Gods. But to the world, it's known as Aramumuru, a mysterious portal that defies explanation, a relic of unknown origin, and perhaps a gateway to something beyond our understanding. Do you think Aramumuru is just an ancient carving, or could it truly be a gateway between worlds? Share your thoughts in the comments below. At first glance, Aramumuru doesn't seem like much. A smooth, vertical rock face, about 7 meters high and 7 meters wide, with a deep rectangular recess carved into it. In the center lies a smaller alcove, shaped like a human-sized door. The stone is perfectly flat, showing signs of advanced polishing, far more refined than most Incan or pre-Incan masonry nearby. Archaeologists have long debated whether it was a temple facade, a symbolic doorway, or simply an unfinished project abandoned by ancient builders. But the most unsettling detail is that there is no passageway behind it. It leads to solid rock, no hidden chambers, no tombs, no corridors, just an immovable wall, a doorway without a destination, a gate to nowhere. According to Andean legend, this was no ordinary monument. It was the sacred gate used by Aramumuru, a high priest of the ancient Lemurian or Incan traditions who fled from Spanish conquest, carrying a legendary golden disc, the key of the gods. This disc, said to have been given to the Inca by celestial beings, had the power to open a doorway into another realm. One night, pursued by soldiers, the priest reached Hayumarca. He placed the golden disc into a small circular indentation near the center of the doorway, an indentation still visible today. And according to witnesses, a beam of blue light emerged from the stone. The gate shimmered like water, and Aramumuru stepped through it, disappearing forever. For centuries, locals have believed that the priest never died, but passed into the world of the gods, waiting for the day when the door will open again. Aramumuru is located near Lake Titicaca, a place long regarded as the cradle of Andean civilization. The Incas believed the lake was where the first humans emerged from the underworld. The landscape itself, a vast plateau surrounded by silent mountains, feels almost otherworldly. Across this region, many stones and megaliths appear to have been deliberately shaped or aligned with astronomical precision. Some researchers claim these sites form an invisible geometric network, part of a global pattern of energy lines or ley lines believed to connect sacred places across the planet. In that sense, Aramumuru could be one of the nodes, a junction of cosmic forces. Here lies the heart of the mystery. Visitors to Aramumuru often describe peculiar sensations that seem to defy logic. Some report a subtle humming sound that becomes stronger when standing near the center of the door. Others describe a mild vibration beneath the feet, as if the stone itself were alive. People have fainted, felt dizzy, or experienced sudden temperature shifts, a warm pulse spreading through the body, then a cold shiver. Some even claim they've heard whispers or seen glowing blue orbs hovering near the gate at night. Local shamans believe that this energy is not dangerous but transformative, a kind of vibrational resonance that affects the human spirit. It is the breath of the gods, one elder once said. When you touch the stone, it listens to you. It remembers. Scientists who have visited the site with electromagnetic sensors found something equally intriguing, a measurable anomaly in the magnetic field near the gate's central niche. The readings fluctuate dramatically, as if a current of energy were flowing through the stone. No natural explanation has yet been accepted, though skeptics suggest the readings may be caused by mineral content or nearby lightning activity. Still, those who have experienced it firsthand describe a sensation far beyond what geology can explain, a deep, resonant vibration like standing inside a massive tuning fork humming quietly with the pulse of the earth. Many spiritual travelers come to Aramumuru seeking connection not with science, but with something sacred. Some claim to enter altered states of consciousness while meditating before the gate. In these trances, they report seeing tunnels of light, celestial beings, or visions of other worlds. There are countless testimonies of people hearing voices, calling their names, feeling drawn into the rock, or seeing their surroundings blur into golden light. One visitor in the 1990s described walking toward the gate during a full moon and feeling as though time slowed down, her heart synchronized with an invisible rhythm coming from within the mountain. Even those who don't believe in such things often admit to feeling something, an inexplicable stillness, an atmosphere heavy with meaning. Because of these phenomena, Aramu Muru has often been linked to the idea of Stargate's ancient portals, allegedly built by lost civilizations or extraterrestrial visitors. The perfect geometry of the doorway, its isolated location, and its strong energy field have fueled speculation that it might once have been part of a forgotten network of teleportation devices or interdimensional gates. Some researchers have pointed out similarities between Aramu Muru and other gate-like monuments, such as the Gate of the Sun at Tiwanaku or certain temple facades in Egypt and Mesopotamia. They propose that ancient cultures across the world might have shared knowledge of manipulating energy or vibration to open these portals. Skeptics, of course, dismiss this as pseudoscience. They argue that the site was likely carved by pre-Incan peoples as a symbolic doorway, a representation of transition between life and death, earth and heaven. Yet even those explanations fail to address the strange magnetic anomalies or the recurring reports of humming vibrations and radiant lights. The Aymara and Quechua people regard Aramu Muru as a living sacred land. Shamans still come to perform rituals offering flowers, grains, and coca leaves amid drums and ancient chants. They believe the gate connects to the spirit world, especially during full moons or solstices, when the boundary between realms grows thin. Visitors describe feeling as if they've stepped into ancient times, the chants echoing through the stone, smoke drifting in the thin Andean air, and the stone gate glowing faintly beneath the starry sky. Modern archaeology has largely avoided grand claims about Aramu Muru. Official studies suggest it was carved between 500 and 1,000 years ago, possibly as an unfinished religious monument of the Inca or a local pre-Inca culture. Yet no tools, inscriptions, or artifacts have been found to support that theory. The precision of the surface, the isolation of the site, and the absence of any surrounding settlement raise difficult questions. Why build such a massive doorway into a mountain miles from any known temple or city? And why carve it so precisely only to leave it solid? For now, there are no definitive answers, only the echo of wind sweeping across the plateau and the silent hum of the stone itself. Aramu Muru is a living paradox between science and spirituality, a gate that never opens, a monument leading nowhere, yet one that changes everyone who stands before it. Amid the desolate Andes, the red stone reflects the sunset like a mirror of eternity. Perhaps Aramu Muru is not a portal to another world, but a mirror reflecting human consciousness itself, where the soul touches the ancient heartbeat of the earth. In the mountains of Hayu, Marca, the gate of Aramu Muru remains silent, just as it has for thousands of years. No one knows whether it is a forgotten temple, an unfinished monument, or a stargate leading to another world. Even as science advances, this place continues to defy reason. In the highland wind, the stone seems to hum softly, like the heartbeat of an unseen world behind it. Some doors were never meant to open, a traveler once wrote, but they remind us that the universe still holds countless secrets waiting to be heard. High in the thin air of the Andes, where clouds drift beneath your feet and silence feels alive, stands a place that defies explanation, the Marcahuasi Plateau. Perched more than 4,000 meters above sea level, this vast expanse of stone seems ordinary from afar. Just another wind-carved ridge above the Peruvian highlands. Yet the moment you set foot upon it, the illusion shatters. All around you, immense rocks take shape as faces animals and creatures from forgotten myths staring back through the mist as if frozen in time. For nearly a century, this plateau has unsettled scientists, haunted mystics, and captivated explorers because every stone here seems to whisper a question: who shaped these mountains' nature? Or something far older than we remember? What do you think lies behind these mysterious stone faces? The power of nature, or the legacy of an ancient civilization? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The first modern attention to Marcahuasi came in the 1950s, when Dr. Daniel Russo, a Peruvian archaeologist and mystic, visited the site and declared it the remains of a forgotten civilization far older than the Incas. Russo claimed that the plateau was once home to the Masma people, an advanced ancient race who possessed deep knowledge of the cosmos, energy, and spiritual transformation. What fascinated him most were the enormous shapes scattered across the plateau rock formations that seemed too precise, too symbolic, and too deliberate to be mere accidents of nature. Russo called one of these formations the Monument to Humanity, a colossal rock that, depending on where you stand and the light of the setting sun, reveals the profiles of different human races. A Caucasian face, an African, an Asian, and a Native American, all carved, it seemed, into one unified shape. He believed this was a deliberate message left by an ancient civilization that humanity, regardless of its divisions, shares a common origin. To some, this was poetic imagination. To others, it was evidence that the plateau might have been a sacred site designed to transmit universal truths across millennia. Throughout the plateau, explorers have catalogued dozens of such shapes: the African queen, the Inca priest, the camel, the seal, the frog, and countless others. Some of them stretch more than 20 meters tall, with contours that eerily resemble recognizable forms. When light and shadow fall across the rocks at dawn or dusk, new images emerge, as though the mountain itself is alive, shifting between faces and creatures as time passes. This is where the heart of the Marcahuasi mystery lies. Are these figures purely natural formations sculpted by erosion and the imagination of observers, or are they deliberate carvings, messages left by a civilization lost to time? Geologists argue that the strange shapes are the result of weathering of volcanic tuff and basalt, combined with pareidolia, the human tendency to see faces and familiar shapes in random patterns. They point out that erosion can produce surprising formations when acted upon for thousands of years by wind, water, and temperature change. From their perspective, Marcahuasi is a geological wonder, not an archaeological one. Yet the opposing view is difficult to dismiss. The precision of some figures, their human-like symmetry, and their grouping around what appear to be ceremonial or astronomical alignments suggest an intelligence behind the design. Some researchers propose that an ancient pre-Incan culture might have sculpted the stones, perhaps as part of religious rituals or celestial mapping. Others believe that the site could be a prehistoric observatory where the positioning of the stone faces corresponds to star movements or solstice events, much like Stonehenge or other megalithic monuments around the world. As night falls over Marcahuasi, the mountain transforms into something otherworldly. Visitors have reported that electronic devices suddenly lose signal, compasses spin without direction, and the air itself seems to hum with invisible power, a faint vibration that many describe as alive. Then come the lights, silent orbs, drifting above the rocks, glowing white or pale blue, moving with eerie precision before fading into the darkness. During the 1970s and 1980s, waves of UFO researchers and spiritual seekers arrived convinced the plateau was not merely ancient, but a gateway of cosmic energy. Whether these lights are atmospheric discharges, magnetic anomalies, or something beyond science, they remain one of the most haunting mysteries of Marcahuasi, fueling its legend as a place where the earth still speaks in ways we do not understand. The plateau also carries with it a deep layer of Andean legend. Local Quechua communities speak of the ancient Masma people, a race of enlightened beings who once lived in harmony with the earth and the stars. They were said to have harnessed natural energy from the stones themselves, transforming the plateau into a temple of resonance and vibration. When their time ended, whether by catastrophe, war, or ascension, they supposedly encoded their knowledge in the landscape, carving their faces into the mountains as eternal witnesses to their existence. To those who believe Marcahuasi is not merely a collection of rocks, but a stone library containing a message humanity has yet to decipher. Even the acoustic properties of Marcahuasi seem to echo this mystery. Some stones, when struck, produce bell-like tones as if they were intentionally hollowed or tuned. The idea that the plateau once served as an amphitheater of sound and ritual where resonance and vibration formed part of spiritual practice fits neatly into the broader theory that ancient civilizations use sonic frequencies in their temples and monuments. Scientists insist that Marcahuasi's formations are natural, the product of erosion, wind, and time, for no tools, carvings, or inscriptions have ever been found. Yet when one stands before the massive stone faces, doubt begins to creep in. The contours of a cheek, the symmetry of an eye, the precision of a jawline all seem too deliberate to be chance. Each angle catches the light in a way that gives life to the stone, as if a hidden intelligence shaped it. Here, the border between geology and art dissolves. Marcahuasi becomes a silent debate between science and faith, asking whether we are witnessing nature's coincidence or the enduring signature of forgotten hands. For many modern visitors, the plateau has become a pilgrimage site, not only for those seeking answers, but also for those seeking meaning. Campers spend nights under the dazzling Andean sky, meditating among the stone giants, convinced that the place emits an energy that awakens spiritual awareness. Some claim to have visions, others describe feeling watched or guided. The plateau, they say, communicates not with words, but through presence. It is this fusion of science, spirituality, and myth that gives Marcahuasi its enduring allure. On one hand, it may simply be a geological wonder, a masterpiece sculpted by wind and time. On the other, it might be the last silent monument of a civilization that predated history, whispering across millennia through stone faces that still look out over the Andes. The question remains open: were the stone faces of Marcahuasi shaped by random forces of nature or by the deliberate hands of forgotten builders? The truth may never be known, but in that uncertainty lies the power of the place. Every visitor who stands before those massive shapes confronts not only the mystery of the stones, but the mystery of human perception itself. Perhaps the real secret of Marcahuasi is that it reflects us, our endless need to find meaning, to see ourselves written into the earth, to connect with something greater than time. Whether it was sculpted by the elements or by ancient hands, the plateau has become a mirror for human imagination, reminding us that mystery itself is part of our nature. It began with the sound of shovels striking stone, not the echo of a sewer, but the whisper of something ancient awakening beneath Rome. In 1917, as workers dug for a railway near Porto Maggiore, they broke through the earth and stumbled upon a doorway to another world. What emerged from the darkness was not a tunnel or a tomb, but a temple, an entire underground basilica, carved with mathematical precision and untouched for nearly 2,000 years. Hidden 9 meters below the modern city, it seemed to exist outside of time itself, a silent relic built for gods no one could name and rituals no one remembered. If you were one of those workers in 1917 and you uncovered a hidden underground temple beneath Rome perfectly preserved after 2,000 years, what would be your first thought? Would you see it as an archaeological miracle or something that was never meant to be found? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. The subterranean Basilica of Porta Maggiore possesses a design so refined that it could easily be mistaken for one of the earliest Christian churches, yet it was built long before Christianity even existed. A grand central nave stretches ahead, flanked by 2 narrow aisles divided by elegant pillars, leading to a semicircular apse that feels almost sacred in its symmetry. The vaulted ceiling curves above like a stone sky covered in dazzling white stucco reliefs so intricate they seem alive under flickering torchlight. These decorations portray mythological figures, gods, heroes, and moral allegories. Their expressions, frozen in motion, whispering messages long forgotten. Every wall, every arch, every inch radiates the aura of devotion, yet it's a devotion without a name. No inscriptions, no icons, no dedications reveal who or what was worshipped here. The structure seems built for faith itself, but faith in what that haunting absence of purpose is what makes this underground masterpiece one of the most mysterious sanctuaries of the ancient world. Unlike temples devoted to Jupiter or Venus, this basilica bears no trace of official Roman religion. There are no altars, no inscriptions naming deities, no offerings or statues to honor the gods. The architecture suggests devotion, yet the space feels deliberately stripped of divine identity. It is sacred, but not to any god the Romans recognized. This is where the mystery deepens: who built it, and what rituals unfolded within its underground halls. Many believe the basilica belonged to an esoteric sect, a group that practiced its faith in secrecy, hidden from public scrutiny and perhaps from imperial persecution. The Romans tolerated most religions, but they feared those that operated in the shadows beyond the control of the state. To build a temple underground was not merely unusual, it was dangerous. The very act of concealing worship suggested rebellion or forbidden knowledge. Among the many theories surrounding the subterranean Basilica of Porta Maggiore, the most compelling connects it to the secretive Neo-Pythagorean Brotherhood, a philosophical and spiritual movement inspired by the teachings of Pythagoras. Far from being mere mathematicians, the Pythagoreans viewed numbers as divine principles that governed both the cosmos and the soul. They believed that through discipline, silence, and inner purification, the human spirit could transcend the physical world and approach divine harmony. Within this context, the basilica's underground design, its geometric precision, balanced proportions, and mythological reliefs symbolizing death and rebirth, seems to mirror the Pythagorean quest for enlightenment. Each motif carved in white stucco may represent a stage in the soul's journey, descent into darkness, purification through suffering, and ascent into spiritual illumination. It is as if the entire temple was built as a physical manifestation of a hidden philosophy, a sanctuary not for worshipping gods, but for awakening the divine within. The stucco reliefs offer tantalizing hints. Figures such as Orpheus, Sisyphus, and Hercules appear all heroes who journeyed into the underworld and faced death to seek truth or redemption. Orpheus descends to rescue his lost love. Sisyphus suffers eternally for defying the gods. Hercules earns immortality through struggle. These are not random mythological scenes. They form a coded narrative about transcendence, suffering, and enlightenment. To the Pythagoreans, They might have symbolized the soul's passage through trials toward divine harmony. Still, the building's placement underground amplifies its symbolic meaning. Light barely reaches its walls, yet the white stucco glows softly, as if representing the illumination of wisdom within darkness. To walk down its narrow staircase, as initiates might have done, was to descend into the depths of the self, leaving behind the noise of the world above. There, in candlelight, surrounded by images of suffering and rebirth, one could confront mortality and emerge spiritually renewed. The question of who built the subterranean basilica of Porta Maggiore remains one of its deepest enigmas. Many scholars point to Titus Statilius Taurus, a powerful Roman nobleman and former consul whose family estate once stood near the site. Historical records from Nero's reign accuse him of engaging in foreign superstitions, a phrase often used by Roman authorities to condemn secret cults or forbidden philosophical movements. Shortly after he was forced to take his own life, his name quietly erased from the public record. Could the basilica have been his creation, a hidden refuge for spiritual seekers built beneath his property to protect the teachings of a suppressed faith? Its secrecy, sophistication, and proximity to his land all suggest a personal connection. Perhaps this underground sanctuary was where Taurus and his followers gathered in silence, far from the scrutiny of empire, seeking enlightenment in defiance of Rome's rigid gods, a final testament to a man who dared to search for truth beneath the surface of his world. What truly sets the Porta Maggiore Basilica apart is how utterly isolated it stands in history. Nowhere else in the Roman world has anything similar been found, no parallel architecture, no inscriptions, no sister sites. It appears to have been a one-time experiment built for a faith that left no name, no text, no surviving disciples. It represents not just a mystery of construction, but a mystery of belief. The absence of any clear religious identity makes the site a paradox, profoundly spiritual, yet theologically empty. Was it a temple, a philosophical school, or an initiation chamber? Some scholars have even proposed that it served as a symbolic tomb, a monument not to a person, but to the idea of rebirth itself. Its location beneath the earth could represent the death of ignorance, its luminous white interior, the enlightenment that follows awakening. Modern visitors who enter the basilica through a narrow modern staircase describe an uncanny stillness. The air is cool and heavy, as if time itself hesitates there. The vaults above shimmer faintly under the museum lights, and the reliefs still whisper myths of human endurance. One can imagine the initiates gathering in silence, performing rituals lost to history, perhaps chanting, perhaps meditating, perhaps simply sitting in the dark, contemplating the path from life to death and back again. In the end, the Basilica of Porta Maggiore resists explanation. It stands as both a masterpiece of Roman engineering and a riddle of human faith. A sanctuary without gods, a church before Christianity, a place where the boundary between philosophy and religion dissolved into mystery. Was it a secret school for spiritual transformation, a philosophical experiment in stone, or a rebellion against the formal gods of Rome? The deeper one studies it, the more it feels like a mirror reflecting the eternal human desire to find meaning in the shadows. 2,000 years later, the basilica still guards its silence. Beneath the eternal city, its halls remain untouched, hidden from the world it once defied. Whatever happened there, it was meant to stay secret. And perhaps that secrecy, that deliberate absence of explanation, is its message. Across the quiet fields and forgotten cemeteries of Europe, archaeologists have uncovered graves unlike any other's burials that defy the ordinary rules of death. Inside these graves, bodies were found pinned down with sickles, decapitated, or gagged with bricks. They have come to be known as the vampire graves. And while the idea of vampires belongs to myth and folklore, these burials are disturbingly real. What do you think about these vampire graves? Were they merely the result of ancient superstition or evidence of something people truly witnessed long ago? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The phenomenon is not limited to a single country or culture. It stretches across the European continent, forming a chilling map of fear that once united vastly different peoples. In Poland, at the site of Drosko, archaeologists unearthed several graves from the 17th century, containing skeletons unlike any others in the region. One woman's body was found with a heavy iron sickle laid across her neck, positioned so that if she tried to rise, the blade would decapitate her. A large stone was also placed on her throat, and an iron padlock was buried beside her leg, symbols of binding, both physical and spiritual. Another skeleton had a sickle pressed across the abdomen, perhaps to slice through the body should it attempt to sit up. These chilling arrangements reflect a deliberate attempt to make death permanent. Farther south in Bulgaria, excavations near the ancient port of Sozopol revealed remains of men with iron stakes driven through their chests. The practice was once common in medieval Slavic territories, where fear of the undead was strong. Local legends spoke of the upia, a corpse that could rise at night to feed on the living. Archaeologists noted that these individuals often bore signs of social isolation, perhaps outcasts, or those who died in unusual ways, targeted as potential vampires. The town of Sozopol even earned the eerie nickname, the Town of the Vampire, after the discoveries made headlines. In Italy, a grave uncovered in Venice's Lazaretto Nuovo, an island used as a plague quarantine site in the 16th century, revealed a skeleton of a woman with a large brick jammed into her mouth. This grotesque image was interpreted as a way to stop her from chewing her way out of the grave or spreading disease, a ritual associated with the fear of shroud-eaters' corpses believed to gnaw at their burial cloths, symbolically consuming the living through pestilence. Her skull, preserved with the brick still in place, remains one of the most haunting archaeological photographs ever taken. From Poland's misty fields to Bulgaria's coastal ruins and Venice's plague islands, each of these discoveries tells the same story: a Europe haunted by the terror of the dead, refusing to stay dead. The so-called vampire burials share remarkable similarities despite being separated by geography and centuries. Bodies are found staked, pinned, decapitated, or weighted down. Some are placed face down to disorient the corpse. Others have stones, bricks, or sickles restraining their limbs. These are not random acts of violence, but calculated measures, rituals of protection. Historians note that during the Middle Ages, Europe was plagued by epidemics, plague, cholera, smallpox, and people sought explanations for the relentless death surrounding them. When villagers opened old graves, they sometimes found bloated corpses with blood around the mouth, unaware that this was a normal result of decomposition. To terrified eyes, it looked like proof of the undead feeding on the living. This fear was contagious. Communities began to preemptively secure their dead, ensuring that no restless spirit could return. The vampire graves are more than curiosities. They are the physical remains of psychological warfare against death itself. Many of these graves date from times of plague and famine, when mass deaths and social chaos created an environment ripe for superstition. In an age with no scientific understanding of disease, it was easy to link a spreading sickness to a restless corpse. Villagers might identify a recently deceased person as the source of misfortune, exhume the body, and perform anti-vampire rituals, staking, beheading, or burning. Ironically, these acts themselves spread disease, but they offered a desperate sense of control. In Venice, the brick in the mouth was likely a reflection of this fear. Corpses that exuded fluids or produced strange post-mortem sounds were seen as still alive, so the brick served to silence them forever. The act was both symbolic and literal, an attempt to close the mouth of death. Modern forensics has demystified many of these practices, yet the fear behind them remains chillingly human. Scientists explain that post-mortem gases can cause bodies to appear to move or even groan. Fluids leaking from the mouth can mimic blood, and skin retracting from nails and teeth makes them appear longer classic vampire traits. Still, the precision and consistency of these graves suggest more than mere panic. They indicate a shared cultural system of belief across medieval Europe. Whether in Catholic Orthodox or pagan communities, the rituals share striking parallels, hinting at a deeper, perhaps prehistoric layer of folklore about the revenant, the returning dead. Even more intriguing, some graves were found in regions where the term vampire had not yet entered the language, implying that fear of the undead transcended linguistic and national boundaries. Those buried as vampires were not random victims. Many appear to have been marginalized individuals, foreigners, criminals, or people who died violently or suddenly. In some cases, the vampire may have been a scapegoat, a symbolic sacrifice to restore order during a time of chaos. The anti-vampire rituals thus had a double meaning. They were acts of exorcism, but also of social purification. To the living binding, the dead meant cleansing the community. This idea resonates with the broader medieval worldview, where disease, sin, and the supernatural were tightly intertwined. A corpse that defied decay, or a death that defied understanding, could only be explained as a spiritual contamination. When all the discoveries are mapped together, a pattern emerges from the Carpathian Mountains to the Baltic coast, from the Balkans to the British Isles. The fear of the undead formed an invisible network through Europe's collective psyche. The sickle across the neck in Poland, the stake through the chest in Bulgaria, and the brick in Venice's mouth are not isolated oddities, they are different dialects of the same ancient language of fear. Even today, these graves reveal a hidden unity beneath Europe's diverse cultures, an instinctive human dread of death's rebellion. Each site is a frozen dialogue between reason and terror, faith and decay. Archaeologists now treat vampire burials as invaluable evidence of psychological history, the study of how people have confronted mortality through ritual. The graves bridge folklore and physical reality, turning old tales of Nosferatu and Dracula into tangible history. In recent years, forensic anthropology, radiocarbon dating, and DNA analysis have confirmed that most vampire burials date from the 16th to 18th centuries, coinciding with the period when vampire legends first spread across Eastern Europe and entered Western literature. This overlap between belief and archaeology forms a remarkable case study in how myth shapes human behavior. Despite all modern explanations, something about these vampire graves still feels deeply unsettling. The precision of each anti-vampire ritual shows not madness, but a belief that death itself was dangerous. Science can explain decay, but not the need to fear it. From Poland's foggy fields to Italy's catacombs, these graves whisper the same truth. Beneath every civilization lies the same heartbeat of fear, fear of death, disease, and the unknown forever sealed beneath the cold earth of Europe. Along the quiet banks of the Taunton River in Massachusetts lies a relic so mysterious that it has puzzled scholars, explorers, and dreamers for more than 3 centuries: the Dighton Rock. At first glance, it may appear to be nothing more than a large granite boulder, weathered and unremarkable. But look closer, and you will see that its surface is covered in strange markings, hundreds of lines, symbols and shapes carved deep into the stone. Some seem geometric, others resemble human figures or animals, while a few look like ancient letters from an unknown script. No one knows who made them, no one knows when, and most of all, no one knows why. What do you think about the Dighton Rock? Are these carvings traces left by ancient native peoples, evidence of a transoceanic voyage before Columbus, or a mysterious message from a lost civilization? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The rock itself is massive, weighing around 40 tons and measuring over 3 meters in length. Before being moved to a protective museum enclosure in 1963, it once lay partly submerged by the river tides. During low tide, explorers in the 17th century could approach it and attempt to record what they saw. The first known drawing of the Dighton Rock dates back to 1680, made by Reverend John Danforth. His sketch revealed a chaotic yet deliberate collection of shaped circles, arrows, humanoid figures, and odd, runic-like symbols. Even at that time, it was clear that the rock carried an ancient mystery. But the question that has haunted generations ever since is this: who carved the inscriptions on Dighton Rock? From the very beginning, the theories have been as numerous as they are wild. Early European settlers believed that the carvings were the work of Native Americans, perhaps the Wampanoag people who lived along the Taunton River. Some suggested they represented spiritual or ceremonial symbols, or even a record of battles or tribal events. Yet as more scholars studied, the rock doubts began to grow. The symbols didn't match known Native American petroglyph styles. The shapes seemed more complex, almost as if they belonged to a written language. By the 1700s, Dighton Rock had become an object of fascination for intellectuals and clergymen alike. The famous Puritan minister Cotton Mather even mentioned it, speculating that it might be evidence of a civilization that predated all known native tribes. As colonial curiosity grew, so did the list of exotic possibilities. Some claimed that the Phoenicians, the seafaring merchants of the Mediterranean, had crossed the Atlantic thousands of years ago and left these marks as proof of their presence. The theory was not entirely dismissed. After all, Phoenicians were known for their navigation and trade networks across vast distances. The strange linear carvings on Dighton Rock even seemed to some eyes to resemble the Phoenician alphabet. In the 19th century, the obsession deepened. Antiquarians, linguists, and amateur historians from Europe and America began proposing ever more ambitious theories. Some claimed that the rock was the work of Norse explorers Vikings who had reached the shores of New England centuries before Columbus. They argued that certain symbols resembled runes, the old writing system of Scandinavia. This idea gained traction when the Viking America narrative became popular, fueled by discoveries like the Kensington runestone in Minnesota. Perhaps believers said Dighton Rock was another piece of that same forgotten history, a message left behind by Leif Erikson's followers, carved to mark their claim in a strange new land. But others went even further. Some claimed that the carvings were made by Portuguese explorers, pointing to a particular legend involving Miguel Corte Real, a 16th century navigator who disappeared while exploring the North Atlantic. According to this theory, Corte Real's expedition may have reached Massachusetts, and Dighton Rock was carved by his men, possibly to commemorate their arrival. In fact, one researcher in the early 1900s went so far as to translate the carvings into a supposed Portuguese inscription, claiming it read, "Miguel Corte Real, by the will of God, here took possession." This interpretation was so passionately defended by some historians that Portugal even sent diplomatic representatives to Massachusetts to study the stone. However, modern linguists found the translation to be purely imaginative, built more on patriotic enthusiasm than evidence. The markings, when analyzed scientifically, did not match Portuguese letters or carving methods of the 1500s. Still, none of these theories were ever conclusively disproven either. The carvings are too eroded, too ambiguous to offer clear evidence one way or another. Every generation seems to find in Dighton Rock whatever story they wish to see. To some, it is an ancient, indigenous, sacred site. To others, it's the smoking gun of pre-Columbian transatlantic contact. And to a few, it's something even stranger, a message left behind by a lost civilization, or perhaps visitors not of this earth. Indeed, fringe theorists and ancient astronaut enthusiasts have added yet another layer to the mystery. They point to the strange symmetry of certain shapes and their resemblance to constellations, suggesting that Dighton Rock could be a kind of ancient star map. Others claim that some of the figures resemble humanoid beings with elongated heads or radiating halo signs, they say, of extraterrestrial influence in ancient times. Though mainstream science rejects such interpretations, they continue to capture the imagination of those who see history as a vast puzzle still missing its most important pieces. Archaeologists have tried to analyze the rock more scientifically. Techniques like microscopic wear analysis and radiocarbon dating of associated sediments have been applied, but none have provided definitive results. The stone's granite composition makes it nearly impossible to date the carvings directly. The depth and style of the lines also vary, suggesting they may have been added over centuries, perhaps, by different peoples at different times. This raises yet another possibility that Dighton Rock was not the work of one group, but a palimpsest of history, a surface where many generations left their mark, each interpreting the stone anew. The physical environment of the rock adds to its mystery. Before its relocation, the Dighton Rock rested partly submerged in the tidal waters of the Taunton River. The constant rise and fall of the tides may have both preserved and distorted the carvings, blurring their lines over the centuries. Early sketches made in the 1600s and 1700s differ noticeably from later tracings, either because of erosion or perhaps because the human eye tends to find patterns even where none exist. In that way, Dighton Rock is like a mirror, reflecting the beliefs and fantasies of whoever studies it. Today, the rock resides inside the Dighton Rock State Park Museum, protected from further damage. Yet even with modern tools, 3D scanning, digital imaging, and enhanced photography, the puzzle remains unsolved. No consensus has emerged. Scholars continue to debate its age, its authorship, and its purpose. Some suggest it might have been a boundary marker or ritual monument, while others insist it must hold narrative meaning, possibly tied to lost oral traditions of early inhabitants. What makes the mystery of Dighton Rock so enduring is not only the uncertainty of its origin, but also what it represents the limits of our historical knowledge. It stands as a silent reminder that the past is often far more complex than our tidy timelines suggest. Every groove in the stone may hold a fragment of a story we no longer understand, a message carved across centuries that has lost its key of interpretation. Even in our age of satellites and DNA sequencing, this rock resists explanation. It humbles scientists and inspires poets. It connects local legend with global speculation, from Native American shamans to Phoenician traders, from Viking warriors to Portuguese sailors, from earthly travelers to cosmic visitors. Each theory, in its own way, says more about humanity's hunger to understand its origins than about the stone itself. Perhaps that is the true meaning of Dighton Rock. It is not merely an archaeological artifact, but a canvas of human imagination, one that invites every observer to ask the same timeless question: who came before us, and what did they try to say? Hidden in the sands of time beyond the reach of maps and memory lies a name whispered through the temples of ancient Egypt, the Land of Punt. To the pharaohs, it was no ordinary place. It was the land of the gods, a paradise overflowing with gold, ivory, incense, and divine mysteries. Egyptian ships once set sail into uncharted waters, guided by faith and legend, seeking a realm said to be the very source of life itself. Yet despite centuries of worship trade and royal expeditions, one haunting question remains unanswered. Where was the land of Punt? If you were an explorer in ancient Egypt, where would you sail in search of the legendary land of Punt, toward the coasts of Africa or across the Red Sea into Arabia? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. From the reigns of Egypt's earliest kings, the name Punt appears again and again, wrapped in reverence and wonder. In the inscriptions of the Temple of Deir el-Bahari, built under Queen Hatshepsut in the 15th century BCE, vivid reliefs depict the most famous expedition to Punt. These carvings show ships gliding over the Red Sea, laden with treasures, gold, ivory, exotic animals, and sacred myrrh trees. The Queen's artists called Punt Ta Netja, literally the land of the gods. In the minds of the Egyptians, it was a paradise, a holy origin of life itself, and perhaps the birthplace of their gods. The carved reliefs of Punt are among the most vivid windows into a world long vanished. On the temple walls of Deir el-Bahari, artists captured a thriving land filled with life and order. The people of Punt are portrayed with dark, sun-warmed skin, tightly curled hair, and garments of animal hide or soft linen, showing both practicality and pride. Their houses stand on tall wooden stilts beside a lush riverbank, a clear hint of a humid coastal environment teeming with vegetation. The king and queen of Punt receive the Egyptian envoys with ceremony. The queen's full rounded form and regal stance suggest prosperity and divine favor, perhaps symbolizing fertility itself. Yet despite such intricate depictions of people, homes, and riches, one haunting mystery endures. No one knows where this land truly was. The Egyptians described Punt as overflowing with wealth, gold dust, aromatic resins, incense trees, ebony animal skins, and live baboons and leopards. These were not ordinary trade goods. Myrrh and frankincense were essential for religious rituals, symbolizing purification and divine connection. To bring them from Punt was not only an act of trade, but of piety, a sacred duty that connected Egypt to its spiritual source. Pharaohs like Sahura Pepi II and Hatshepsut sent fleets to retrieve these treasures, implying that Punt was accessible perhaps by both river and sea. Yet after thousands of years, the trail disappears into myth. For more than a century, archaeologists and Egyptologists have wrestled with one haunting question: where was the land of Punt? No ancient map bears its name, and no ruins or inscriptions have ever revealed its precise location. The Egyptians, famous for their meticulous record-keeping, described Punt in great detail, its kings, its people, its gifts to the pharaohs, yet never once mentioned the route or coordinates that led there. It was as if Punt existed on the edge of the known world, half real, half divine. Modern scholars have scoured every possible clue. Many argue that Punt lay along the Horn of Africa, perhaps in Somalia or Eritrea, where frankincense and myrrh trees still grow, and monkeys, giraffes, and leopards roam, matching ancient depictions almost perfectly. Others point towards Sudan or Ethiopia, proposing that Egyptian expeditions might have traveled up the Nile's southern reaches, navigating inland through savanna and highland valleys. Yet another theory places Punt across the Red Sea on the Arabian Peninsula in the incense-rich lands of Yemen and Oman, whose ancient ports once thrived on the same trade. Still no conclusive archaeological proof has surfaced. No harbor, no temple, no royal seal. Every discovery only deepens the enigma. Perhaps Punt was not a single kingdom at all, but a network of trading communities spanning both sides of the Red Sea, a frontier between Africa and Arabia, where myth and commerce intertwined. This absence of proof deepens the mystery. How could a land so often visited by Egypt's most powerful rulers vanish so completely? The reliefs of Hatshepsut's temple clearly depict a bustling, organized society with kings, trade goods, and architecture. Could such a civilization simply dissolve into time, leaving no trace? Some historians believe that Punt was never a single kingdom, but rather a network of coastal communities, a kind of ancient trade federation stretching across the Horn of Africa. Others suggest that Punt's people may have migrated inland as the climate changed, erasing their coastal cities beneath sand and sea. In the quest to uncover the truth about Punt, modern science has provided its most compelling evidence yet. Researchers analyzing mummified baboons discovered in Egyptian tombs made a remarkable breakthrough. These animals, once gifted to pharaohs as sacred offerings from Punt, were examined using isotope and DNA tracing techniques. The results revealed that their biological signatures matched the coastal highlands of Eritrea and eastern Ethiopia right along the Red Sea. This discovery strongly supports the theory that Punt was located in the Horn of Africa, a region rich in the incense trees and wildlife described by ancient Egyptians. Yet despite this scientific triumph, the mystery endures. No harbor, no ruins, no written record has ever been unearthed. Punt remains a ghost on the map, proven by nature, but lost to time. Beyond the question of geography lies a deeper enigma. Ancient Egyptian texts often describe Punt not just as a trading partner, but as a spiritual homeland, a place of divine origin. Some scholars, especially Ethiopian historians, have proposed that the early Egyptians themselves may have roots in Punt, that the flow of civilization moved northward from the Horn of Africa to the Nile Valley. In Egyptian mythology, the god Osiris is sometimes said to have come from the south, a phrase many interpret as pointing toward Punt. If true, this would suggest that Punt was not a distant foreign land, but a memory of Egypt's ancestral home, a sacred echo of where its culture began. The story of Punt also hints at how far the Egyptians had advanced in navigation and geography. The reliefs at Deir el-Bahari depict ships with curved hulls, rigged sails, and long oars, evidence that they crossed the Red Sea more than 400 years ago, one of the earliest known long-distance voyages in history. The expedition of Hatshepsut brought back not only treasure, but also living incense trees, which were planted in the temple gardens of Thebes. Some depictions even show the queen herself watching as these sacred trees take root in Egyptian soil, a symbolic act of bringing heaven to earth. Yet as the centuries passed, the name of Punt faded from Egyptian records. Later dynasties still used the term in hymns and prayers. The incense from Punt remained the holiest offering to the gods, but the land itself drifted into legend. The more the Egyptians glorified it, the less tangible it became. By the time of the Greek historians, Punt was no longer a destination, it was a myth. The question, where was Punt, has haunted generations of Egyptologists. Every new clue seems to lead to more uncertainty. Satellite imagery, coastal surveys, and desert excavations have all failed to pinpoint its remains. The Horn of Africa fits the biological and environmental descriptions. Arabia fits the maritime connections. But the truth may be that Punt was never confined to one shore. It may have been an entire region of exchange, an ancient crossroads where Africa and Arabia met united by trade, faith, and myth. The Land of Punt remains one of history's greatest enigmas, a sacred bridge between the mortal and the divine. Whether hidden in Africa, Arabia, or lost beneath desert sands, its memory still whispers through Egyptian temples. Scholars and explorers continue the search, chasing fragments of incense gold and myth. If Punt truly existed, it could rewrite the story of Egypt's beginnings. Perhaps that's why the ancients never marked its place, because Punt was never meant to be found, only remembered. Beneath the endless sky of the Eurasian steppe, where the wind howls like an ancient spirit and the horizon seems to have no end there, once thundered a nation unlike any other. They came from nowhere, swift as the storm, fierce as the flame, and within a generation their name spread in whispers and fear: the Scythians. These were riders who needed no walls, no cities, no kings, only their horses, their bows, and the boundless land beneath them. For centuries, they ruled the grasslands with unmatched mastery, weaving gold, blood, and myth into their legacy. And then, without warning, they were gone. No battles, no collapse, just an unsettling silence, as though the wind itself had carried them away. To this day, their disappearance lingers like a ghost across the steppe, a mystery carved not in stone, but in the memory of the earth itself. What do you think truly happened to the Scythians? Were they wiped out, or did they simply fade into history and become part of us? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Unlike the grand empires that built marble cities and towering temples, the Scythians shaped a civilization that left almost nothing standing and yet everything enduring. They roamed the vast steppes without palaces or monuments, their legacy buried in thousands of mysterious kurgans scattered across Eurasia. Within these mounds, archaeologists have found astonishing works of art in pure gold deer, caught in mid-leap eagles, gripping serpents and beasts intertwined in eternal struggle. Each piece, carved with impossible precision, reveals a belief system bound to nature and spirit rather than stone and empire. The Scythians needed no cities because their world itself was their temple, the sky their roof, the grasslands their floor, and the fire their altar. They carried their faith in motion, their art in their hands, and their eternity beneath the soil they once thundered across. They were masters of the horse and the bow, moving across the landscape like shadows. To enemies, they were phantoms, appearing suddenly, raining arrows from a distance, then vanishing back into the grasslands. To the Greeks, they were wild and terrifying. To the Persians, they were unconquerable. Even Darius the Great of Persia, who once led a massive campaign to subdue them, was forced to retreat after chasing them deep into the empty steppe, following an enemy that refused to stand and fight, yet could not be caught. Herodotus, the Greek historian, called them a people who know no master. But perhaps the greatest clues to the Scythian soul lie not in their battles, but in their burials. Frozen beneath the permafrost of Siberia, archaeologists have found Scythian tombs so well preserved that the bodies still bear tattoos, elaborate swirls of mythical beasts covering arms, backs, and legs. Alongside them rest their horses, sacrificed and adorned for a final journey into the next world. These burials whisper of a faith in the afterlife, a belief that death was not an end, but a passage. In this, the Scythians may have seen themselves not as conquerors of the land, but as riders between worlds, living and dead earth and spirit. The Scythians' culture was a fusion of paradoxes, fierce, yet artistic, savage, yet spiritual. They used hemp smoke in rituals, perhaps to commune with the divine, or to bridge the worlds of the living and the dead. They revered animals not as symbols, but as companions of power, the deer for swiftness, the eagle for sight, the panther for strength. And though they left no cities, their legacy stretched across thousands of miles, influencing art, language, and even the mythologies of those who feared them. Yet by the 2nd century BCE, this great people simply faded from the chronicles of history. The empires they once terrified wrote no final chapter for them. Archaeologists find no evidence of an apocalyptic war, no layers of ash or destruction. Instead, the Scythians seem to dissolve their artifacts, still scattered across the steppe, but their presence gone, their name becoming legend. The disappearance of the Scythians remains one of history's strangest mysteries. By the 2nd century BCE, this once mighty civilization that had ruled the steppes for centuries seemed to dissolve into the winds. Historians have long debated their fate. Some argue they were absorbed by rising tribes, such as the Sarmatians and Alans, their culture diluted until it vanished. Others believe climate change altered the steppes' grasslands, breaking their nomadic lifelines and forcing them to scatter into smaller, forgotten groups. Yet none of these theories truly explain the eerie suddenness of their fall. How could a people so vast, so feared, leave no ruins, no record, not even a final battle? It is as if the Scythians, bound by the spirit of the wind, simply rode away into history, their empire fading into legend, their memory carried only by the silent breath of the steppe. Perhaps the answer lies in the very nature of their existence. The Scythians built no cities. They carved their history into the land itself. Their culture lived in motion, in the herds that grazed the fires, that burned the wind, that howled through the grasslands. When the winds changed, when new peoples came, their memory drifted away like smoke. What was once the thundering heartbeat of the steppe became a faint pulse beneath the soil. Still, the echoes remain. In the mountains of Altai, frozen tombs preserve their faces, their hair braided with gold wire, their eyes still closed in eternal calm. In Ukraine, in southern Russia, and in the plains of Kazakhstan, archaeologists continue to uncover their treasures, each discovery revealing another fragment of a story that refuses to die. Even genetic studies show their traces in modern populations of Central Asia and Eastern Europe, suggesting that while the Scythians vanished as a nation, their blood still flows in the veins of millions. And yet, there is something almost poetic about their vanishing. A people who lived in the open, under endless skies, were never meant to be confined by time or borders. They came like a storm and disappeared like mist, leaving behind legends of golden warriors, tattooed riders, and queens who fought beside their men. To this day, the question lingers like an unsolved riddle. Did the Scythians truly vanish, or did they simply become one with the wind that once carried them across the steppe? Their mystery endures, not because of what they left behind, but because of how little they left. The grass grows over their mounds, the rivers erase their tracks, yet their story continues to captivate the imagination. A reminder that some civilizations are not lost through destruction, but through transformation. The Scythians may have disappeared, but in every whisper of wind across the Eurasian plains, in every galloping horse beneath the wide blue sky, one might still hear their ghostly echo, the heartbeat of the vanished lords of the steppe. Between the misty peat fields of Cambridgeshire lies one of the strangest and least known archaeological sites in Britain, Flag Fen. Buried beneath the mud for over 3,000 years, this site was once a gigantic wooden structure of the Bronze Age, and today it stands as one of the most important archaeological discoveries in the United Kingdom. What makes Flag Fen extraordinary is not only its age, but also the astonishing level of engineering sophistication achieved by people who lived long before the age of iron or written records. What do you think about Flag Fen? Was it a bridge to the spirit world or an engineering marvel far ahead of its time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Over 3,000 years ago, this region was not farmland, but a vast network of wetlands, lakes, and shallow channels. In that watery landscape, ancient builders created a wooden causeway or bridge nearly 1 kilometer long, connecting higher ground in the west to a man-made island at its center. Archaeologists discovered more than 60,000 wooden posts driven into the mud, arranged in 5 parallel rows, forming what looked like a monumental wooden corridor leading to a ceremonial heart. It is hard to imagine that in an era without iron or wheeled vehicles, humans could coordinate such a massive project. Each post was sunk deep into the clay, some over 2 meters long, and many still stand exactly where they were placed, proof of a remarkable understanding of structure balance and environment. What astonishes researchers most about Flag Fen is the precision and scale of its wooden system. The posts were not placed at random. Each one is spaced at nearly identical intervals, forming straight lines that stretch east to west. Such symmetry could not be accidental. It required measured planning, spatial awareness, and organized labor. Most of the timbers were made from ancient oak, a hard, dense material difficult to work with, yet they were shaped using sharp bronze tools that left clean, even cuts comparable to those made by modern steel axes. Many posts show evidence of being polished or flattened at the top, suggesting that the builders understood how to reduce friction and prevent cracking when driving them into the mud. Archaeologists also found signs that older posts were periodically replaced, indicating that the structure was maintained for generations. Instead of discarding the old supports, people reinforced them with new timbers beside them, a technique strikingly similar to modern bridge maintenance. This reveals that the builders understood the shifting nature of wetland ground and adapted their methods so that the structure would endure. Flag Fen, therefore, was not just the result of brute labor, it was a triumph of observation science and inherited knowledge. It shows the presence of prehistoric engineers who listened to nature and mastered it with a precision far ahead of their time. What is truly miraculous is that much of the wooden structure remains intact after more than 3 millennia. The secret lies in the environment itself. The mineral-rich, oxygen-poor peat sealed the wood in a natural vault. Without oxygen, bacteria could not decay the material, preserving tens of thousands of posts as if they were placed only decades ago. When archaeologists first uncovered the site, they felt as though they had walked into a project still under construction. Many beams still had bark, some even retained a resin smell. Several were laid in interlocking patterns, the ancient equivalent of modern cross-bracing used in bridges. The structure reveals a grasp of basic physics, distributing weight, creating lift, maintaining balance in waterlogged terrain. No one knows how these people acquired such understanding, but one thing is certain. Flag Fen was no random accumulation of timber. It was the product of early scientific reasoning, the outcome of experimentation, observation, and adaptation. Since its discovery in 1982, scholars have debated the real purpose of Flag Fen. Some see it as a bridge or causeway connecting settlements across the wetlands, but the wealth of artifacts uncovered along its length tells another story. Beneath the mud lay hundreds of valuable objects, bronze weapons, amber necklaces, finely crafted daggers, decorated pottery, and even human and animal bones. Many items were intentionally broken, before being placed in the water, a clear sign of ritual offerings. This led to the idea that Flag Fen was a spiritual bridge between the world of the living and the realm of spirits, a place where people cast treasures into the water to seek blessings, rain, or safe passage for the dead. Anthropologists have even called it the Stonehenge of water. If Stonehenge reached toward the heavens, Flag Fen reached downward into the dark mirror of the earth, symbolizing life, death, and rebirth. Though they left no writings or drawings, the people of Flag Fen demonstrated an extraordinary level of social organization. Building such a massive structure required hundreds of coordinated workers over many years, cutting trees, transporting logs, measuring distances, and driving stakes by hand. They likely used locally forged bronze tools, showing their knowledge of metallurgy, carpentry, and hydrology. They must have observed tides, humidity, and water levels, choosing the perfect moment to build, for a single mistake could have doomed the entire project. Modern simulations suggest that driving tens of thousands of posts into deep mud would have been nearly impossible without systematic planning, teamwork, and patience. It was perhaps faith and community tradition that held the project together, a belief that the structure connected them to something sacred. Flag Fen thus stands not only as an engineering marvel, but also as a testament to collective belief and human unity long before cities or kingdoms existed. Today, most of Flag Fen remains underground, preserved in controlled humidity to prevent decay. A section has been reconstructed at the museum site where visitors can walk along the ancient path, seeing the real timbers, dark, damp, but still upright, as if defying time itself. Flag Fen reminds us that human ingenuity did not begin with pyramids or Greek temples, but with humble wooden works like this built by hands that sought to understand the forces of nature. Without modern machinery, these builders achieved stability, balance, and endurance lessons still relevant to modern engineering. Perhaps the greatest wonder of Flag Fen lies not in the posts themselves, but in the minds that conceived them. Minds driven by curiosity, patience, and a desire to touch the divine. Even after decades of study, Flag Fen continues to raise profound questions. Who initiated such an immense project? How did they align and space tens of thousands of posts without modern tools? Why did they choose this flooded, dangerous landscape for their construction? Some archaeologists believe it was a major regional sanctuary used by surrounding tribes for rituals and offerings. Others view it as a symbol of harmony between humanity and nature, a bridge uniting land, water, and sky, reflecting the Bronze Age philosophy of coexistence. Whatever the truth, Flag Fen endures as living evidence of ancient genius and technical mastery. Every year, thousands visit Flag Fen, not merely to see it, but to feel the pulse of history. Amid the wind-swept marshes, one can almost hear the sound of bronze axes striking oak footsteps, splashing in mud, and the glow of torches flickering over sacred waters. Flag Fen is more than an archaeological site. It is a monument to human intellect and resilience, proof that our ancestors could turn the impossible into reality with nothing but their will and their hands. Above all, it reminds us that engineering, whether ancient or modern, is born from belief and the eternal desire to understand the world around us. In the late 16th century, when Europe's eyes were fixed on the promise of the New World, England dreamed of establishing a permanent foothold across the Atlantic, a beacon of civilization in an unknown land. It was 1587 when Sir Walter Raleigh, under the authority of Queen Elizabeth I, sent a group of around 115 settlers, men, women, and children, to Roanoke Island off the coast of what is now North Carolina. This was not the first English attempt at colonization in the New World, but it would soon become the most haunting. For when rescue ships returned just 3 years later in 1590, the colony had vanished, every single person gone without a trace. If you were one of the rescuers who returned in 1590 and discovered that the entire colony had vanished, no bodies, no traces, only an eerie silence. What do you think really happened to them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe they left and joined the native tribes, or were they taken by an unexplainable mystery? What makes the story of Roanoke so chilling is not just the disappearance itself, but the silence it left behind. There were no signs of violence, no burned houses, no remains. The fort stood deserted, weathered by time and wind, as if its inhabitants had quietly walked away and dissolved into the wilderness. The only clue was a single word carved into a post, Croatoan. On a nearby tree, 3 more letters CRO had been etched. These marks, though seemingly simple, have puzzled historians, archaeologists, and linguists for centuries. The story began with optimism. The settlers were led by Governor John White, who left for England soon after landing to gather more supplies. However, the timing could not have been worse. England was preparing for war against Spain's armada. White's return was delayed for 3 long years. When he finally sailed back across the ocean in 1590, eager to see his daughter Eleanor Dare and his granddaughter Virginia, the first English child born in America, he found nothing but emptiness. The houses were dismantled tools, abandoned gardens overgrown. It was as if the colony had simply evaporated into thin air. The inscription, Croatoan, gave hope that the colonists might have moved to nearby Croatoan Island today, known as Hatteras Island, home to the friendly Croatan tribe. But a violent storm forced White's ship to retreat before they could search. He never saw his family again. That single lost opportunity sealed Roanoke's fate as a mystery forever. Among the many theories that surround the fate of Roanoke, one of the most compelling is the idea that the settlers, starving, isolated, and abandoned, may have sought refuge with nearby Native American tribes. Historical reports tell of later explorers encountering indigenous groups whose members had unusually light eyes, European-style clothing, or could speak fragments of English. These traces suggest that at least part of the colony may have assimilated into tribal life, adopting new customs to survive in an unfamiliar land. Yet despite centuries of investigation, no direct evidence, no records, graves, or artifacts has ever confirmed this theory. It remains a haunting possibility that Roanoke's people did not die, but simply became part of another world. Others propose darker endings, that they fell victim to hostile tribes, diseases, or the harsh climate of the coastal wilderness. Yet, if violence had struck, where were the remains? No mass graves, no weapons, no fire damage, nothing consistent with a massacre. It's this utter lack of evidence that fuels the eerie nature of the mystery. It feels as if Roanoke's settlers stepped into another dimension, erased from the map of history. In recent years, archaeologists have unearthed tantalizing hints, shards of pottery, bits of metal, a broken sword hilt at sites miles away from the original colony. These suggest that some survivors might have split into smaller groups trying to find safety inland. 2 locations known as Site X and Site Y have revealed 16th century European artifacts. Still, these findings remain circumstantial, a whisper, not a confession. There's also the possibility that the settlers attempted to sail back to England on their own, building makeshift boats. But crossing the Atlantic with limited resources and no naval expertise would have been suicide. Perhaps they perished at sea, their final resting place somewhere beneath the endless waves. Beyond the realm of history, the mystery of Roanoke has drawn countless legends and supernatural interpretations. Some claim the colonists were taken by ancient curses, or that they vanished under the influence of mysterious forces from the nearby forests, where native tribes warned of spirits that devoured lost souls. Others whisper about strange lights seen over the island, or the notion that Roanoke was a thin place, a boundary between worlds, where those who entered could never return. Even linguistically, the story leaves echoes. The word Croatoan itself has appeared eerily throughout American lore, supposedly carved on trees or walls near other mysterious disappearances, from Amelia Earhart's last messages to the deathbed of writer Edgar Allan Poe. While these are likely myths, they have turned Croatoan into a cultural symbol of the unknown, the vanishing point of reason and history. But perhaps the most haunting aspect of all is that Roanoke was meant to be the beginning of America. The first English child, the first settlers, the first dream of a new world, all vanished, leaving only a question mark where a foundation stone should have been. The dream of Roanoke dissolved, but it did not die. It merely shifted northward, where Jamestown would later rise in 1607. Yet Jamestown's colonists were haunted by the fate of their predecessors, wondering if they too would one day disappear into the silence. Modern science has tried to bring clarity. DNA testing, archaeological digs, and historical cross-referencing have all been used to chase Roanoke's shadow. But despite technology's reach, the mystery holds firm. Each clue only deepens the sense of distance, a ghostly reminder that not all stories can be completed. What happened to the lost colony of Roanoke remains one of humanity's most unsettling questions. Did they survive and become part of the land itself? Were they erased by forces of nature or by history's indifference? Or did they vanish into something we cannot yet comprehend? Perhaps that's the truest legacy of Roanoke, not a tragedy, but a mirror. A reminder that even in an age of satellites and DNA databases, there are still blank spaces on our map, places where history whispers but never speaks. The island of Roanoke stands today as a quiet patch of earth surrounded by reeds and coastal winds. Nothing remains of the colony but imagination. Yet when the fog drifts in from the Atlantic, some say you can still feel the presence of those lost souls, the echo of footsteps that never reach their destination, the murmur of a vanished world. At the heart of the Indian subcontinent, where ancient trade routes once crossed barren plains and misty jungles, a dark legend has been whispered for centuries, the legend of the Thuggee sect, a secret society that combined religion, blood, and crime. To many, they were ruthless killers, but to themselves, they were devoted followers of the goddess Kali, and every life they took was a sacred ritual offered to the goddess of destruction. No one knows when this brotherhood was born, and no historical record pinpoints their true origin. Some sources suggest that the Thuggee have existed since the Middle Ages, perhaps even before the Muslim invasions of India. Ancient documents, village tales, and British colonial reports all agree on one thing: the Thuggee sect is a mystery whose beginning cannot be traced. If a secret cult could exist for centuries without anyone knowing its true origin, do you think the Thuggee sect was merely a fabricated legend or a real religious order that once existed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The word Thuggee comes from the old Hindi term thag, meaning deceiver or strangler. Yet to them, it was not an insult, it was a sacred title representing those chosen to serve the divine mission of Kali, the goddess who symbolizes both destruction and rebirth. In Hindu mythology, Kali embodies both light and darkness. She destroys evil to clear the path for renewal. The Thuggee believed that every life they took was an act to maintain cosmic balance, a way to repay humanity's spiritual debt in the endless cycle of life and death. They did not see themselves as murderers, rather as instruments of divine justice, silent enforcers maintaining the world's sacred order. For centuries, the Thuggee sect lived and died in the shadows of legend, like a blood-red thread weaving through the fabric of India's ancient history. They built no temples, raised no idols, and left behind no scriptures. Every ritual and oath was passed down orally in secret, only among the initiated. Children could grow up never knowing their father was a Thuggee, until one night he would take them deep into the jungle and teach them how to speak, how to observe, and how to strangle, without letting the victim utter a sound. The Brotherhood did not merely exist, it merged into the daily lives of thousands, from farmers and traders to beggars and travelers. Anyone could be a Thuggee, and no one could be sure who was. Strangely, in their world, killing did not come from hatred or greed. Every act was performed as a sacred ritual. Before each mission, they prayed to Kali for guidance and protection. When the deed was done, they offered sacrifices, buried the bodies carefully, and never returned to the site again. For the Thuggee, taking a life was a divine duty, and breaking ritual protocol could bring calamity upon the entire group. Death to them was not a sin, it was a part of holy order. Legends say that deep within the jungles of central India lie lands not meant for humans. These were the places where the Thuggee gathered at night, lit torches, worshipped Kali, and shared tales of the souls they had liberated. They believed those souls were purified, and that the Thuggee themselves would be protected by the goddess from spiritual retribution. In this twisted yet devout mindset, evil became an expression of faith. Their weapon was something so simple, it was terrifying: the silk scarf or rumal knotted in the middle to create a choking point. During an ambush, they approached victims as friendly companions, telling stories, singing songs, and in one swift moment, the scarf was wrapped around the neck. No scream, no knife, no blood. They believed Kali did not wish to see blood, for blood was earthly and impure. A silent death was a purer offering. Perhaps that is why, for centuries, the Thuggee remained undetected. They killed quietly, and their victims vanished without a trace. According to British colonial records, the trade routes of 18th and 19th century India were nearly controlled by the Thuggee underground. They blended into caravans, acting kind and helpful, sharing meals and stories, until one night everyone disappeared. A caravan of 20 merchants might set out, but only a few would reach their destination, never knowing what happened to the rest. Some even believed that local officials and priests were complicit, offering protection or turning a blind eye to the cult's activities. When the British expanded their rule over India, the endless disappearances alarmed them. Something massive and hidden was at work. In 1830, Officer William Henry Sleeman began an extensive campaign to eradicate the Thuggee. Thousands were arrested. Many confessed chilling details about murders for the goddess Kali. They described how they selected victims and assigned roles: the lure, the strangler, the lookout, the gravedigger. Some groups had killed more than 100 people in a single year, then vanished into the crowds of pilgrims as if nothing had happened. From the British perspective, the Thuggee were a nationwide murder cult, an empire in the shadows that threatened the safety of all colonial India. But from their own viewpoint, they were keepers of an ancient faith, misunderstood and persecuted for their devotion to Kali's divine destruction. Officers like Sleeman saw themselves as heroes who ended the menace. Yet modern historians still wonder, did the British exaggerate the crimes to justify their dominance? Or was the Thuggee truly a murderous cult that had endured for centuries? Some accounts describe the Thuggee with solemn faces and eyes filled with devotion, speaking of Kali as if she were their mother. When sentenced to death, they showed no fear, some even smiled, believing they would soon be reunited with the goddess. That serene acceptance unsettled witnesses of Schlieman's campaign. It seemed as though they did not see death as an ending, but as a passage in the divine cycle of rebirth, ruled by Kali. Today, the Thuggee exist only as legend. Yet in remote Indian villages, people still whisper about the followers of Kali wandering under the moonlight silk scarves, in hand murmuring prayers. No one knows if these stories are true, but they revive a primal fear within humanity, the fear of evil justified by holiness. The obscure origin of the Thuggee remains unanswered. They appeared like ghosts in India's history. No one knows when they were born, and no one knows when they truly vanished. Perhaps that ambiguity is what makes them so terrifying. A normal criminal group can be destroyed, but faith cannot. And when faith is intertwined with destruction, it can live on forever in human consciousness, long after the people who bore the name Thuggee have faded into dust. Across the rugged landscapes of Sardinia, an island adrift between Italy and North Africa, stand thousands of ancient stone towers, known as Nuraghi. These colossal constructions, built more than 3,500 years ago, rise silently from hills, valleys, and plains, their dark basalt walls whispering the story of a forgotten civilization. Among all prehistoric monuments of Europe, few evoke such deep fascination and mystery. Their architecture, massive stones stacked without a single trace of mortar, remains one of the most puzzling achievements of the ancient world. Who built them, how, and why are questions that still haunt archaeologists today. What do you think about this mystery? Did the ancient builders possess a special technique to stack those massive stones without mortar, or could there be something beyond our understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Each Nuraghi is made of gigantic basalt blocks quarried locally and transported across the rugged terrain of Sardinia, with no evidence of wheels, pulleys, or iron tools. These stones, some weighing several tons, were stacked with remarkable precision, forming conical towers that rise between 10 and 20 meters high. The largest and most complex, such as Sunuraxi di Barumini, are composed of multiple towers linked by thick walls, courtyards, and inner chambers. What astonishes modern engineers is that no mortar or binding substance was ever used. The stones fit together so tightly that even after thousands of years of earthquakes, storms, and erosion, many of these structures remain standing. The precision of their alignment, curvature, and stability defies simple explanation. It is as though the builders had mastered a lost art of megalithic construction, one that could resist the weight of time itself. The method, called dry stone masonry, is known elsewhere in Inca walls of Cusco, in Mycenaean fortresses, and in the mysterious towers of the Balearic Islands, but nowhere in such scale and consistency as in Sardinia. Some researchers suggest the builders developed an intuitive understanding of geometry, distributing the stones to balance pressure evenly. Others believe the secret lies in how the stones were shaped, subtly curved and angled to interlock perfectly without needing cement or clay. Yet the precision is so high that even laser scans today reveal micrometric level fitting between the blocks. The island of Sardinia is scattered with more than 7,000 Nuraghi, and perhaps there were once twice as many. They dot the island like silent sentinels, each standing on high ground, guarding valleys, rivers, or ancient trade routes. Some are isolated, others form clusters, suggesting the presence of small communities or fortified settlements. Each Nuraghi has its own unique plan. While some are single towers, others are complexes with spiral staircases, hidden passages, and secondary chambers. From the air, these structures appear like stone beehives, their shadows stretching across the golden Sardinian plains. The sheer number of Nuraghi implies an organized society capable of large-scale labor and planning, a centralized civilization that flourished long before the Roman Empire, even before classical Greece. But without any written record, their creators, the Nuragic people, remain shrouded in mystery. Scholars have long debated the purpose of the Nuraghi. Were they military strongholds used to defend the island? Their thick walls and elevated positions suggest a defensive function, yet many are too small or poorly located for warfare. Others believe they served as religious sanctuaries, perhaps linked to the worship of the sun-moon or water deities. Some contain underground wells altars and traces of offerings, evidence of ritual use. Still others propose that Nuraghi functioned as astronomical observatories, aligned with the solstices and constellations such as Orion. Indeed, several towers have entrances that point precisely towards sunrise during the summer solstice, or towards celestial alignments that could have guided agricultural cycles, but no single theory can explain all of them. Perhaps like medieval castles, Nuraghi had multiple purposes, centers of power, religion, and communication, forming the backbone of an island civilization whose spiritual and political life revolved around these megalithic monuments. The construction of a Nuraghi required not just brute strength, but sophisticated engineering knowledge. The builders needed to calculate pressure points, anticipate collapse, and manage the distribution of massive stones. Inside the towers feature false domes or tholos created by layering concentric circles of stones, each slightly overlapping the one below until they meet at the top. This technique, remarkably similar to that used in the treasury of Atreus in Mycenae, reveals a level of architectural understanding far beyond what we expect from Bronze Age islanders. Even more intriguing is the acoustic quality of some inner chambers. Their rounded stone walls amplify sound in a way that suggests intentional design, perhaps to enhance ritual chanting or communication. Others note that the circular form and proportions of the chambers resemble cosmological models symbolizing the heavens. Despite their mastery of stone, the Nuragic people left no written records, no tablets, no inscriptions, no symbols explaining their culture or beliefs. Their pottery tools and bronze figurines tell fragments of their story, depictions of warrior ships, animals, and deities, but never the reason behind the towers. When the Phoenicians and later the Romans arrived, they found the Nuraghi already ancient. The new settlers reused them as shelters or fortresses, but even they did not know who had built them. The civilization that erected these towers had already faded into myth. Archaeological excavations at sites like Barumini Nuraghi, Santu Aten, and Nuraghi Losa have uncovered traces of organized villages, metalworking, and trade with distant lands, evidence of a complex society. But how they mobilized the manpower and resources to erect thousands of towers across such difficult terrain remains unexplained. Who, then, were these master builders? Some scholars suggest they were descendants of Neolithic tribes that evolved in isolation after Sardinia separated from the mainland. Others see connections with the Sea Peoples, those mysterious maritime invaders who spread chaos across the Mediterranean in the late Bronze Age. A few fringe theories even propose that the Nuraghi were built using forgotten technology involving sound magnetism or even a lost method of levitating stones inspired by the precision and durability of the towers. While such ideas lack evidence, they reflect a deeper truth. The Nuraghi challenge our assumptions about what ancient humans could achieve without metal tools or modern machinery. Standing before a Nuraghi at sunset, one feels the weight of millennia pressing from its basalt stones. The structure exudes an aura of power and permanence, as if it was built not merely to endure, but to defy time itself. Moss grows in the crevices, lizards bask on the dark stones, and the wind hums through the narrow openings, yet the structure stands unbroken, unchanged. To this day, locals tell stories of giants who once lived in these towers, linking them to myths of ancient titans or forgotten gods. These legends, though poetic, perhaps contain a fragment of memory, a reflection of how extraordinary the Nuraghi must have seemed even to later generations. In 1997, Su Nuraxi di Barumini was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, symbolizing the architectural and cultural value of these prehistoric towers. Archaeologists continue to study the sites using 3D mapping and ground-penetrating radar to reveal their hidden complexity. Yet with every discovery, new questions arise. Why were some Nuraghi built on inaccessible cliffs? Why are others aligned with distant mountains or star patterns? Were they connected through a network of visual signals, beacons of an ancient communication system? Or did they mark sacred geography, mapping the island's spiritual topography long before written religion? The Nuraghi of Sardinia are more than archaeological monuments. They are messages carved in stone, left by a people whose voice has vanished. Their mortarless walls demonstrate not only strength and skill, but a profound philosophy of permanence, a desire to connect heaven and earth through geometry and endurance. More than 3,000 years later, they still stand silent, yet eloquent, reminding us that human ingenuity can transcend time. Whether fortresses, temples, or symbols of cosmic order, the Nuraghi remain enigmas of engineering and faith guardians of a civilization that mastered the art of balance between stone gravity and eternity. Hidden behind the grand temple of Seti Y in Abydos, there lies a structure so strange, so out of place in the long history of Egyptian architecture that for more than a century, archaeologists have struggled to explain it. Known as the Osirion, this massive underground monument is unlike any other temple in Egypt. It does not follow the graceful linear hieroglyph-covered design of the dynastic temples. We know instead it rises from the depths with colossal granite blocks precisely cut and fitted, resembling the megalithic constructions of South America and the Near East far more than the refined stonework of the pharaohs. When the Osirion was discovered in the early 20th century by archaeologists Flinders Petrie and Margaret Murray, it immediately sparked controversy. The structure lies more than 12 meters below ground level beneath the back of Seti I's temple. Its floor sits much deeper than the foundations of the temple above it, suggesting that it was already ancient when Seti's craftsmen built their sanctuary. Unlike typical Egyptian temples aligned to the east-west axis of the sun, the Osirion is oriented differently, as if it followed another cosmic order altogether. Do you believe the Osirion was a creation of the pharaohs, or evidence of an older forgotten civilization that once mastered stone like no other? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Osirion is composed of gigantic red granite blocks, each weighing between 50 and 100 tons. These stones are not carved with inscriptions or hieroglyphs, but left smooth and raw, giving the entire chamber an atmosphere of primordial strength, as though it belongs to a time before writing, before dynasties, before Egypt as we know it. The central hall is surrounded by 12 enormous pillars supporting massive lintels arranged around a rectangular pool that is now filled with groundwater. Visitors describe it as descending into another world, a place where time seems frozen, where human hands seem too small for the task that built it. This raw, cyclopean style of construction has no equivalent in known Egyptian architecture. Instead, its closest visual cousins are found thousands of kilometers away in the polygonal walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru or the megalithic terraces of Baalbek in Lebanon. In each of these places, enormous stone blocks are cut and fitted with surgical precision, forming seamless joins without mortar. How skeptics ask, could Egyptians of the New Kingdom, working with bronze chisels and wooden rollers, have shaped and positioned such gigantic stones so flawlessly? This architectural style, megalithic, monumental, and geometrically pure, has led some researchers to propose that the Osirion is not a temple built by Seti I, but a much older monument, possibly dating back to a lost pre-dynastic civilization. Even early Egyptologists like Edouard Naville noted that its rough, massive design contrasted sharply with the elegance of dynastic temples. The impression it gives is not of artistry, but of engineering, a sense of functional mathematical perfection. The granite surfaces bear highly accurate right angles and perfectly flat planes, as if cut by machinery rather than hammered by hand tools. Some modern investigators claim that the level of precision seen in these stones is comparable to modern machining tolerances, an unsettling thought if true, suggesting that the builders possessed technologies or techniques that have since vanished. Even more curious is that the entire complex is sunk below the surrounding terrain, creating the impression of a subterranean fortress or a ritual chamber dedicated to the underworld. This design resonates with the myth of Osiris, the god of resurrection, whose tomb was said to lie in Abydos. Perhaps then, the Osirion was not just a temple, but a symbolic tomb of the gods meant to mirror the mythic underworld, where life and death meet in eternal cycles. The heart of the Osirion is a rectangular basin of water, constantly filled by the natural groundwater table. To the ancient Egyptians, water was a sacred symbol, the source of life, but also the boundary between worlds. Descending into the Osirion would have felt like entering the primordial waters of creation, the nun from which the universe itself emerged. In that sense, the Osirion could represent a ritual portal to rebirth, where initiates or priests symbolically crossed from life to death and back again in the spirit of Osiris. Even today, the constant presence of water makes exploration difficult. The lower levels are perpetually submerged, and divers who have attempted to map the chambers describe narrow passages and alcoves that seem deliberately aligned, perhaps once connected to ceremonial routes or celestial markers now long forgotten. Everything about the Osirion seems to defy classification. Seti I's inscriptions at his temple make no mention of building the structure. No hieroglyphs decorate its walls. No historical document names its architect. It seems as if the pharaohs discovered it already, ancient, a relic of a forgotten age, and simply incorporated it into their sacred landscape. If this is true, it would make the Osirion one of the oldest surviving stone structures in Egypt, possibly predating the pyramids themselves. Some speculative archaeologists have suggested that it may even date to around 10,000 BCE, a period before the rise of recorded Egyptian civilization. Mainstream scholars, of course, reject this dating, arguing instead that its architectural anomalies reflect a deliberate archaic revival, an artistic attempt by Seti I to imitate the styles of the past. Yet the megalithic engineering precision still puzzles modern engineers, leaving open the haunting possibility that the Osirion belongs to an unknown chapter of human history. Etched faintly on the granite walls of the Osirion are a series of mysterious overlapping circles, the ancient geometric symbol known as the flower of life. Found also in sacred geometry across Asia and Europe, this pattern is said to represent the blueprint of creation, the mathematical foundation of life and the universe. No one knows when or by whom these symbols were carved. Some suggest that they are much later additions, perhaps inscribed by Greek or early Coptic visitors. Others, however, believe that their presence hints at a continuity of esoteric knowledge linking the builders of the Osirion to other ancient cultures that shared a fascination with cosmic harmony. Their perfect symmetry, deeply incised into the hard granite, seems deliberate, as if the walls of the Osirion were intended to preserve a mathematical truth beyond time itself. The megalithic style of the Osirion has inspired countless theories. Some fringe researchers connect it to the legendary Atlantis, proposing that survivors of a lost civilization brought their advanced engineering skills to Egypt. Others believe it may represent a technological outpost of a prehistoric culture, one that flourished before the Younger Dryas cataclysm around 12,000 years ago, the same era that may have inspired myths of great floods and forgotten cities. Whether or not one accepts such ideas, it remains undeniable that the Osirion challenges our understanding of history. It stands as a paradox of stone, too advanced for its supposed age, too silent to explain itself, and too perfect to have been an accident. Modern archaeologists continue to study the Osirion using advanced techniques, laser scanning, digital modeling, and geological dating, yet definitive answers remain elusive. The granite blocks show no tool marks consistent with copper or bronze chisels. The alignment of the structure appears to follow celestial principles, possibly connected to the stars associated with Osiris, perhaps Orion's belt, or Sirius, both symbols of rebirth in Egyptian cosmology. The absence of inscriptions once seen as a flaw may instead indicate its ritual purity. In ancient thought, the most sacred places were not adorned, but hidden, silent temples of stone and water where the divine was experienced, not described. Today, the Osirion remains partly submerged, accessible only through a steep descent behind the temple of Seti I. Tourists who visit describe the atmosphere as otherworldly, cool, damp, and echoing with a sense of immensity. Standing before those towering blocks of granite, one cannot help but feel that they are in the presence of something older than history, something that transcends human ambition and touches the realm of myth. Was the Osirion truly a tomb for Osiris, a temple to resurrection, a star map in stone, or the last surviving fragment of a civilization that vanished beneath the sands of time? No one knows for sure. But the power of the Osirion lies precisely in that mystery, in its ability to remind us that even in a land as well-studied as Egypt, there are still secrets buried deep below, waiting for light to touch them again. In the heart of modern-day Luxor, beneath the sands that once belonged to the ancient city of Thebes, lies one of the most breathtaking archaeological discoveries of our time, the lost golden city of Aten. Unearthed in 2021 by Dr. Zahi Hawass and his team, this once bustling city had been buried and forgotten for more than 3 millennia, a treasure of stone, gold, and silence that rewrote everything we thought we knew about Egypt's 18th dynasty. Yet, as extraordinary as its discovery was, the mystery of its disappearance remains even more profound. How could a city of this magnitude, a hub of life, power, and devotion, simply vanish from history without a trace? What do you think really happened to the lost golden city of Aten? Was it abandoned because of faith, or hidden for reasons still unknown? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The mystery of Aten is waiting for your theory. The story begins with Pharaoh Amenhotep III, the 9th king of Egypt's 18th dynasty, who ruled between 1390 and 1353 BCE, a golden age of prosperity, architecture, and artistic brilliance. His reign was marked by peace and wealth, and his empire stretched from Nubia in the south to Syria in the north. Aten was believed to be one of his grandest projects, a vibrant metropolis known as the dazzling Aten, or the Rise of Aten, constructed to glorify the sun god and serve as a royal center of production, administration, and ceremony. But then silence. After Amenhotep III's death, the city disappeared. No ancient record mentioned its fall. No papyrus described its destruction. Even the city's name seemed to vanish from Egypt's memory. For over 3,000 years, Aten remained buried beneath the desert winds, a phantom city preserved in time, yet erased from history. This disappearance is what makes Aten one of the greatest enigmas of Egyptian archaeology. Cities rise and fall, but they rarely vanish so completely. There are no traces of warfare, no burn marks, no signs of plague or natural disaster. Instead, everything suggests that its people simply walked away, abandoning homes, workshops, and treasures as if they intended to return. But they never did. When the excavations began in 2021 near Luxor's Valley of the Kings, archaeologists expected to find the mortuary temple of Tutankhamun. What they uncovered instead was a city intact, structured, and astonishingly preserved. Streets lined with brick walls, workshops filled with tools, kitchens with pots still resting on stoves, and storage jars containing dried fish and grains. Even the footprints of workers seemed almost recent, as though the city had merely fallen asleep beneath the sand. Rings, scarabs, amulets, and fragments bearing the cartouche of Amenhotep III were found in abundance, tangible whispers of the world's most powerful ruler at the height of his glory. The level of preservation was so incredible that one archaeologist described it as an ancient Egyptian Pompeii, a city that time forgot but never destroyed. The people had left, yet their world remained exactly as it was. Why? What could compel thousands of citizens to leave a thriving metropolis so suddenly, without chaos, without fire, and without returning to reclaim it? The answer perhaps lies in the religious upheaval that followed. After Amenhotep III's death, his son, the enigmatic Akhenaten, ascended the throne. Akhenaten rejected Egypt's traditional pantheon of gods and declared Aten, the sun disk, as the one and only deity. This act of devotion was revolutionary, even heretical. To break away from the old order, Akhenaten abandoned Thebes and Aten, building a new capital city called Akhetaten, modern-day Amarna, dedicated solely to his god. It was a bold statement, one that symbolized a new beginning, but also a rejection of the past. This could explain Aten's sudden disappearance. The city wasn't destroyed, it was deliberately deserted. Its people may have been forced to relocate, leaving behind homes, tools, and belongings as the royal court moved north. Yet even after Akhenaten's death, Aten was never reoccupied. The sands swallowed it whole, sealing within them the secrets of an empire's forgotten moment in time. Excavations revealed multiple zones within Aten: administrative quarters, residential areas, and industrial districts. Artifacts spoke of daily life: a bakery with ovens, a workshop producing amulets, and a storage complex filled with pottery and tools. One area appeared to be dedicated to religious offerings, suggesting the city also played a spiritual role. Golden jewelry rings engraved with Amenhotep III's name and painted ceramics were discovered alongside mud brick walls that stood shoulder-high, remarkably intact after 34 centuries. Inscriptions confirmed that the city was active during the final years of Amenhotep III and continued briefly under Akhenaten's rule. Even more astonishingly, several items bore the name of Tutankhamun, the boy king, who reversed Akhenaten's monotheism and restored the old gods. This link implied that Aten might have remained operational in some capacity, serving as a production center for royal tomb goods or religious ceremonies. The lost city of Aten stands at the crossroads of Egypt's most dramatic transformation, the shift from traditional polytheism to monotheistic worship and back again. It captures the fragile moment between two worlds, one gilded in old traditions, the other daring to redefine divinity. But what is most striking about Aten is not its wealth or architecture, but its absence. No destruction layer, no evidence of catastrophe, just abandonment in silence. It is as though the city's soul had been taken, leaving behind only its body. Some historians speculate that political tension between Amenhotep III's court and Akhenaten's religious vision forced a mass relocation. Others suggest environmental reasons, the shifting of the Nile drought, or disease. But none of these theories can fully explain the eerie orderliness of the departure. Everything was left behind in perfect condition, as though the people had planned to come back the next morning, but never did. To this day, only a fraction of Aten has been excavated. Satellite imaging and ground radar reveal that the buried city stretches much farther than what is currently visible, possibly extending under modern Luxor itself. Hidden chambers, sealed tombs, and unrecorded inscriptions may still lie beneath the dunes, waiting to speak. Archaeologists believe that Aten might hold clues about the mystery of Egypt's golden age, about the religious schism that reshaped the empire, and perhaps even about how Tutankhamun's dynasty truly ended. Every discovery deepens the mystery rather than resolving it. The lost golden city of Aten remains a haunting paradox, a masterpiece of ancient civilization that vanished without reason. Every wall and artifact still whispers the same question: how could something so magnificent simply disappear? Perhaps that is Aten's true mystery, not in what it reveals, but in what it hides. A city that rose with the sun god and was swallowed by the sands, waiting for its story to shine again after 3,000 years. Deep within the mist-shrouded mountains of southern Russia, where the forests of the Caucasus whisper with ancient winds, lie thousands of stone structures that should not exist, at least not according to what we know of human history. These are the dolmens of the North Caucasus massive stone chambers, carved and assembled over 4,000 years ago, with such precision that even a sheet of paper cannot slip between their joints. Each bears a single mysterious circular portal cut into its face, as if inviting us to look into another world. No written records mention their builders. No tools, no settlements, no traces of the people who created them have ever been found. Yet they stretch across mountains and valleys, forming a silent network of megaliths that defy explanation. Were these tombs, temples, or something far stranger, remnants of a forgotten civilization with knowledge beyond its time? As archaeologists, mystics, and historians continue to search for answers, one haunting question remains: who built the dolmens, and why did they vanish without a trace? What do you think? Were these dolmens built by an ancient lost civilization, or by ordinary humans with knowledge we still can't explain? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The dolmens of the North Caucasus are among the most impressive megalithic monuments on the Eurasian continent. Constructed between the 3rd and 2nd millennia BCE, they predate most known civilizations of the region. Each dolmen is composed of several megalithic slabs, fitted so tightly that even a blade of grass cannot pass through the joints. The craftsmanship is remarkable. The surfaces are perfectly flat, the angles precise, and the circular openings carved with such symmetry that modern engineers often marvel at their accuracy. Many of these stones weigh between 10 to 30 tons, and yet they were quarried, transported, and assembled without the use of iron tools, wheels, or advanced machinery. Archaeological surveys have revealed more than 3,000 dolmens across the southern slopes of the Caucasus. They are often aligned in clusters or positioned along mountain ridges as if forming some ancient map or grid. Some are solitary, nestled deep in the forest, while others stand in lines that follow the movement of the sun. These patterns have led researchers to suspect that their builders possessed advanced knowledge of astronomy and geometry, perhaps aligning their monuments with celestial events such as solstices or equinoxes. Inside the chambers, archaeologists have sometimes found fragments of pottery, stone beads, and bronze ornaments suggesting ritual use. However, only a few contained human remains, which complicates the assumption that these dolmens were merely burial tombs. In many cases, the interiors appear to have been used repeatedly or reopened centuries after their construction. Were they temples, shrines, portals between worlds? The true purpose remains elusive, but the deepest mystery lies not in what they were for, but in who built them. No known culture in the Caucasus region during that time possessed the technology or organization necessary to construct such enduring monuments. The Bronze Age tribes of the area were mostly pastoral, living in small settlements with limited architectural traditions. Yet the dolmens demonstrate a level of skill and planning that implies a centralized society with sophisticated engineering knowledge. This contradiction has given rise to countless theories, some archaeological, others almost mythical. One school of thought attributes the dolmens to an unknown prehistoric civilization that flourished and then disappeared long before recorded history began. According to this view, these people might have been the ancestors of later Indo-European tribes or a distinct group altogether, now lost to time. Their mastery of stonework suggests either the inheritance of a much older tradition or contact with other advanced cultures. Some researchers have even proposed links to the builders of the megalithic monuments of Europe, from Stonehenge in England to the dolmens of Brittany, Spain, and even Korea, due to their similar shapes and the recurring circular portal hole. Could this be evidence of a global megalithic culture spreading across continents in the distant past? Others take a more spiritual approach. Among the local Adyghe and Abkhazian peoples, there are ancient legends about the giants who built the stone houses. According to these tales, a race of tall beings, strong and wise, once lived in the mountains. They possessed knowledge of the stars, the earth, and energies that flow through stone. When they vanished, they left behind their stone dwellings, the dolmens, as remnants of their lost world. Folklore aside, these myths curiously mirror stories from other parts of the world, where massive stone monuments are often credited to beings greater than humans. A more esoteric theory proposes that the dolmens are energy structures built to harmonize with the magnetic field of the Earth. The circular opening in each dolmen is believed by some to serve as a gateway for energy flow, a conduit between the physical and the spiritual realms. Modern visitors often claim to feel unusual sensations, warmth, pressure, or a subtle vibration when placing their hands near the openings. Scientists have attempted to measure magnetic anomalies around the sites, and while no definitive proof exists, the readings in some dolmen fields do show irregularities compared to surrounding areas. Whether these are natural phenomena or remnants of deliberate design remains unknown. Archaeologists, of course, remain cautious. They focus on tangible data. The quarry marks the types of stone used, the direction of construction, and traces of ancient tools. Yet even within academic circles, the identity of the builders is far from settled. Some scholars point to the Mycop culture, a Bronze Age society known for its advanced metallurgy and wealth, while others suggest that the dolmens were created by multiple cultures over time, evolving from simple stone slabs into more complex architecture. However the sheer scale of distribution, thousands of identical structures across a vast mountainous region suggests a coordinated effort, perhaps guided by shared beliefs or a centralized authority that has long since vanished. Another layer of mystery arises when comparing the Caucasus Dolmens to similar structures across the globe. The resemblance between Russian dolmens and those in India, France, and Korea is uncanny. Each shares the same box-like chamber, a front-facing slab with a round aperture and precise megalithic assembly. How could such distant cultures, separated by thousands of miles and with no known contact, have arrived at such similar designs? The possibility of a shared origin, or at least a shared idea, hints at something far greater than regional coincidence. It points to a forgotten chapter of human prehistory, when ideas and techniques might have spread across continents long before conventional historians believe possible. Even today, the dolmens are surrounded by an aura of mystery and reverence. Locals consider them sacred, and some still perform rituals near them, leaving offerings of bread coins or flowers. They believe the spirits of ancestors or ancient builders still dwell within. Archaeologists continue to excavate, but every new discovery seems to open more questions than it answers. Beneath layers of soil and time, the dolmens remain like silent witnesses to a vanished epoch, their builders unknown, their purpose obscured, their secrets locked in stone. Who were the engineers capable of moving such heavy slabs through mountainous terrain? How did they cut the stone so precisely with tools that, according to our understanding, should not have existed? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, why did they stop? At some point, the construction of dolmens abruptly ceased. The culture responsible for them disappeared without trace, leaving no written records, no cities, no continuity, only these enduring stone enigmas as echoes of their existence. In the end, the dolmens of the North Caucasus stand as a monument, not just to forgotten hands, but to the limits of our understanding. They remind us that history as we know it may only be the surface of something far deeper. Perhaps one day, buried beneath the stones or hidden in the mountains, we will find the answer to who built them. Until then, they will continue to guard their silence, timeless, ancient, and unbroken, as if waiting for humanity to finally remember. Between the glowing dunes of New Mexico's White Sands National Park, where the gypsum sand shines like powdered moonlight, lies one of the most astonishing discoveries in modern archaeology, a trail of ancient human footprints pressed into soft earth tens of thousands of years ago and preserved by time itself. These are not the fossilized bones of extinct creatures or the crumbled ruins of a vanished civilization. They are the literal steps of people, men, women, and children who once walked across a prehistoric lakeshore during the last ice age. And they are rewriting the story of how and when humanity first reached the Americas. If humans really walked across White Sands more than 20,000 years ago, what do you think drove them? Survival, exploration, or pure curiosity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For over a century, scientists believed that humans first arrived in the Americas about 13,000 years ago, following retreating glaciers from Asia through the Bering Land Bridge, bringing with them the Clovis culture, known for its distinctive spear points. This timeline was so deeply ingrained in scientific thought that it became almost dogma. But the White Sands footprints shattered that belief. Radiocarbon dating of seeds embedded in the sediment layers containing the prints has revealed an astonishing age between 21,000 and 23,000 years old. That means people were already living, walking, and perhaps hunting in what is now New Mexico at the height of the last ice age, thousands of years before the Clovis people ever existed. If these dates are correct, the implications are staggering. It would mean that humans reached North America almost 10,000 years earlier than anyone believed, possibly by routes that are still entirely unknown. Were these early humans descendants of an even older migration, perhaps along the Pacific coast or across an ice-free corridor lost to time? Or were they members of an ancient population that later vanished, leaving behind only their footprints as silent proof of their existence? The idea that humans lived in North America more than 20,000 years ago was once unthinkable. Now, thanks to the White Sands footprints, that once impossible chapter is being written into the human story. The footprints themselves are hauntingly real. Each one, large or small, deep or faint, tells a fragment of a larger human story. Many belong to young women and children who seem to have walked together, perhaps gathering food or crossing a muddy lakeshore while the adults hunted nearby. Some tracks show someone walking steadily forward, others returning along the same path, hinting at a back-and-forth journey. In one remarkable trackway, a woman appears to have carried a child for part of the way, set the child down, and continued alone, a scene frozen in time for over 20 millennia. That such delicate impressions could survive for so long is almost miraculous. The ground of White Sands once formed the bed of an ancient wetland filled with soft mud, rich in gypsum. As people and animals walked across it, their footprints were quickly buried by new layers of sediment. Over time, the water evaporated, the mud hardened, and layers of white sand sealed the prints beneath, preserving them in astonishing detail. When scientists uncovered them in the 2010s, it was as though time itself had been peeled back. What they saw were not fossils or relics, but moments of life, the texture of skin, the pressure of a heel, even the faint drag of toes as someone adjusted their step. Among the ancient tracks at White Sands are those of mammoths, giant sloths, and dire wolves walking beside human prints. Some overlap perfectly, suggesting people followed or hunted these Ice Age giants. In one trail, a human step cuts into a sloth's footprint. The next sloth step twists as if startled. It's a frozen moment of contact between species now extinct, proving that early humans lived and fought for survival alongside these mighty creatures. When the dating results were first published, the scientific community erupted with debate. Could footprints truly be that old? Radiocarbon dating was done on plant seeds, the remains of an aquatic species called Ruppia serosa, found in the same layers as the footprints. Critics argued that the carbon in these plants might have come from older sources, skewing the results. To settle the matter, researchers applied multiple new techniques, including optically stimulated luminescence, OSL, and independent radiocarbon dating of pollen grains. The outcome, published in 2023 and 2024, confirmed the original age estimates around 21,000 to 23,000 years. The evidence grew stronger, not weaker. This confirmation placed White Sands at the center of one of archaeology's greatest paradigm shifts. The idea that humans colonized the Americas during the last glacial maximum, when ice sheets still covered much of the continent. The mystery deepened. If people were already here so early, how did they arrive? The Bering Land Bridge would have been largely impassable at that time, buried under massive glaciers. Some scientists now suspect that small groups traveled along the Pacific coastline, navigating kelp forests and island chains, reaching the Americas thousands of years before the ice receded. The White Sands footprints are more than ancient traces. They are echoes of human life, frozen in time. You can almost see a woman carrying a child, children, following mammoths far away. Each step feels alive, a heartbeat from a vanished world where people sought food, warmth, and safety. Their path across a drying lake bed became a message for the future, uncovered only when desert winds revealed their journey again after 20,000 years. Today, White Sands looks nothing like the lush wetlands it once was. It's a vast desert of shimmering gypsum dunes, the largest of its kind on Earth. The ground glows white under the blazing sun and reflects moonlight with an eerie luminosity, earning it the nickname the Desert of Ghosts. Yet beneath those shifting sands lie the remnants of a living world and the footprints of the first Americans. Protected under layers of sediment, they continue to reveal new secrets each year as scientists uncover more trackways. In some places, the footprints form long trails stretching hundreds of meters, showing the direction and purpose of movement. Others appear clustered, as if people had stopped to gather rest or interact. Together, they create an intimate portrait of life during the Ice Age 1 that words or artifacts could never convey. The discovery of the White Sands footprints has rewritten human history. If people lived in New Mexico over 20,000 years ago, it means humans reached the Americas far earlier than once believed, perhaps 30,000 years ago. These prints suggest multiple migration waves, some vanished, others survived. Hidden beneath the sands may lie even older traces of our kind. They form a bridge between the Ice Age and today, reminding us that humanity has always been restless, exploring, adapting, and leaving behind silent steps that still echo through time. Perhaps the greatest mystery of the White Sands footprints is not how those people arrived, but who they were. They left behind no tools or bones, only the rhythm of their steps across an ancient lakeshore. Were they ancestors of modern Native Americans or a forgotten people lost to time? No one knows. Yet their footprints, over 20,000 years old, remain the oldest human traces in the Americas, silent proof that even amid ice and extinction, humanity kept moving forward. Beneath the whispering dunes, their path still endures, the first story of us written not in words, but in steps.